Tell us about the tattoos.
Shut the fuck up, you little prick.
But then I've got the Phoenix.
Hey, prick.
So I'll take it from Bob every day of the week.
Absolute disgrace.
I'm sure no one will mind.
Move him out of here, Darren.
Ricky Hatton didn't go over for his fighter because he risked getting abducted and sold into sexual
I never said that.
Both have been rape victims. I'm not watching Frank Buglioni live on a Saturday night. You're out of your mind.
Jesus Christ, get yourself a life.
He's actually a priest.
Yeah.
It's because his brother John Fury eye gouged him.
What have I told you all this time? He's going to end up sucked out, fucked out, looking for a handout.
Boxing, nutters, messenger group. I'm gonna be the king.
J-Pump, you know what I'm saying?
Well, hello everybody and welcome to the 469th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast. I'm your host Steve Wellings, and joining us on the call we have Matty DiGialinardo and Andy Patterson, going live on YouTube from 8 o'clock every Sunday evening. The Patreon RSS feed updates shortly after the show concludes. And hello to everybody listening throughout the week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and SoundCloud. Don't forget to leave a review on the podcast player of your choice throughout the entire month of April. Nothing less than 5 stars is acceptable. Before we get stuck into a great weekend of boxing, some good action, some dire action, a lot to look forward to next weekend as well. A couple of questions have got thrown in. Matty, don't want to do too many spoiler alerts here or spoil some upcoming information you might be giving to our glorious listeners in the chat or listening during the week. But any betting updates from you? How did you get on over the weekend from a betting perspective?
Some ups and some downs, Steve. Some ups and some downs. That tall fucker kind of screwed me a little bit. I found some value on Tony Harrison beating Sergio Garcia. Harrison's such a streaky fighter. We can touch on that later. But I'll tell you what, man, my long-term parlay that looked pretty fucking good. It's dead now. So at least the first leg, it went early and it wasn't in the middle. So I can start again and get some more value around that Charlo victory. But that tall son of a bitch and that uppercut, Steve, goddamn if it didn't fuck me.
You say long term. What's long term, Matty? What were we waiting on here?
Lubin and all.
So I had in that one. I had Lubin, Spence, Charlo, and Stevenson all to win. No method of victories, all to win, and that was 4 or 5 to 1 or something like that. So we'll start again, Steve. We'll start again.
Or maybe we shouldn't, but there you go, Matty. We'll continue betting. Bet responsibly, everybody. Bet responsibly. That's all I can add.
How about you spunked with the Masters, Matty?
My Masters bets are hanging by a thread. They looked really good yesterday. Yeah, that Tiger making the cut, man. I knew his leg was going to give out on him, but him making the cut, that was pretty fucking incredible. I hate to go off topic, but I think we all love Tiger Woods. That was cool to see. Just back from that accident. Fucking A, Tiger. Rock on, dude.
You love going off topic, Matty. Come on now.
That's where I live, Steve. I live on the fringes all the time.
On the fringes is Matty. Andy's here. We've already mentioned that. Hello to everybody in the chat. We'll flick through shortly and see who's knocking about. That tall motherfucker Matty was referencing is in fact Sebastian Fundora. Even though Golovkin fought over the weekend, there's only one place I'm going to start. That fight last night was a cracker. I only watched it a couple of hours ago. Absolutely brilliant. Over in the Virgin Hotels, Las Vegas. God knows what's happening in the Virgin Hotels, but there was some scrap going on between Ericsson and Lubin, getting all lubed up there. 9th round retirement stoppage against Sebastian Fundora. Ericsson Lubin ended up getting withdrawn. He got a bit of a beating in the end, I think, Andy. Kevin Cunningham, he did the right thing for me. Lubin had landed the big comeback shot in round 7, but you could visibly see his tank was depleting. At the end, he was bleeding. His face was contorting into this alien shape. He was taking punishment. Now, he loaded up a lot early. He had fast hands, but he was retreating into that shell as we started entering into the championship rounds. There was no complaints from me on the stoppage. I think Cunningham did the right thing.
Yeah, I think so, mate. If you look at his face, it looks like a bag of spanners. It looks like he's went through a car. I've been in a car accident right through the windshield. It was really disturbing to see a wee bit, to be fair with you. Very early doors, he's just standing in the pocket. He's allowed Fundora basically whipping hooks and uppercuts. As Matty says, uppercuts were just lethal. I forget how many he landed. Actually, I don't even know if he did a punch count on it, but fuck it, everyone he seemed to throw seemed to actually land. Certainly, obviously, the uppercut softened him up. That's the one that dropped him. I don't think his legs were solid as he got up for the first knockdown, but I think obviously the round ended pretty quickly after that, so obviously it saved him. Lubin did well in response with some of the shots that he was throwing, to be honest with you, but he was still a target, and as he remained in front of Fundora basically the entire fight. Feet weren't moving, legs were slow, and that's, as you say, after getting pummeled in round 7. After getting pummeled all that time, round 7, he's turned the tables and he's attacked Fundora, dropped him. And then after 9, obviously Kevin Cunningham stopped the fight. His face was badly swollen, as I mentioned. And just to kind of just to end on this topic about the judges' scorecards, I know it was a great fight. Savage, both guys dropped. Great entertainment. But that those two scorecards, the two judges that had Lubin up by 2 points, was an absolute disgrace. I don't see how you could have Lubin anywhere close to being up in that fight. I thought he took an absolute beatdown. It kind of reminded me a wee bit of, remember when Kinsidze knocked the shit out of Antoine Douglas? I don't think Lubin will be up in fighter again after this. Really, really surprised as to how. I know he's showed a wee bit of kind of fragilities or a bit of glass in the past, but that was an awful beatdown in the end as to what he got. He played his part, but as you said as well, his tank was beginning to deplete. The face, you just don't know if there's any bad, anything broken there, any like orbital bones broken. But I seen Kevin Cunningham was getting a bit of shit ringside. I don't know if somebody threw something at him.
Yeah, I was going to mention that actually, Andy. There's always dickheads in the Lubin fan base. Do you remember after the Charlo loss, someone threw a chair at the other? I can never know which Charlo it is. The other one, and then last night someone lobbed some ice at Cunningham. There's some arseholes in the crowd, I think, follow him.
And Cunningham, obviously, after the fight, he stopped. He was just taking Lubin's gloves off. He was jawing back at whoever was in the crowd. So there was obviously something getting said, about of verbals. Look, he's paid to make the big decisions. He's speaking to his fighter in between rounds. He's no liking what he's seen. The face, I seen him post fight. The face was grotesque. Absolutely, it was probably one of the worst faces you probably see this weekend.
I've put a picture up there, Andy, on the screen that I cut off Showtime afterwards when he was backstage, and it doesn't do it justice. I think it was a lot worse in actually looking at it live than what you see on there. His face was terrible.
I'm looking at a picture of boxing scene. They usually do a kind of a gallery of pictures, and it looks worse there. His right eyes look like a slit. His right jaw is all kind of badly swollen. There's very bad puffiness under both eyes. The bottom lip's badly swollen and bleeding.
It's like a time-lapse photo from the first round to the last of Adrian Broner getting fat around the face.
You could also see him swelling between the nose. It was like, remember that fight in Japan yesterday? One of the fights Undercard. His face didn't look like a kind of guy out of the horror films. But
his nose started sort of sinking into his face, didn't it?
It was it's horrible. And fair play to the guys for kind of fighting them for as long as what they did. But Lubin, fair play to him as well. He's done his bit, but it's a concern for here on in. I think he's done now at kind of world level. Fundora, based off that, if he can't see, he seems to be very good at mid distance. If he keeps his kind of jabs going, he's going to be hard to beat. If you let him get inside and let him work, my God, man, he whips those uppercuts, those hooks. Obviously, he's going to be hard to beat, but at the same time, as he's also showing he can be hurt now as well. So. It's just a kind of it's a kind of matter of time, I think, with him as well, to be honest with you. But we'll wait and see. It's going to be a fun ride, and he seems to be wanting Charlo next after this, so hopefully he gets that fight as well. So very, very good at the main event. That show, the fact that entire Showtime card was pretty decent, to be honest with you.
Just before we move on, Andy, you picked up on something I was going to touch on there. Actually, I liked afterwards the way Fundora said, I've got the WBC interim, but that's not what I'm interested in. I want the proper world title. I want to fight Charlo. I liked that.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember now. Why is that an interim belt? What was the situation again?
I don't know. Lubin's had a couple of eliminators, to be fair. He's been kept hanging around, hasn't he? So I've no idea.
It's basically like the mandatory position now. Instead of calling him the mandatory challenger for the title, they're calling him the interim.
So, I think it's just purely because Charlo decided to go with the rematch with Castaño.
It must be. It must be.
So then, what's the point then? I mean, I know what Matty's saying there. This is him doing just call him the mandatory. They don't need to create a belt for it. They don't need to create a belt. I mean, the guy's #1 contender for a reason now at this point. There's no reason to take a sanctioning fee off the kid just to kind of put a belt on him as an interim title or whatever it was. Charlo's an active champion. So what is the point of bringing in this bloody belt? So it's just mere pish by the sanction body. So fair play to Fundora for calling it out. I know he's got to take the belt, but he can maybe market himself as a champ of some sorts. But it's good to see him want to call out Charlo or Castaño. I think he even wanted Charlo to win the fight against Castaño so he can get him.
He said that, yeah.
Yep. So I'm down for that.
Slappy Gilmore says, I always think the same. He's an absolute freak of nature, that Fundora. Lubin, who knows where he's going now, maybe onto Skid Row. He's always been a sucker for the uppercut, Matty. He soaked them up over and over again. I thought I picked Lubin on points last week, but I agree with Andy. I don't see how the judges had him up. I thought Fundora was just completely working him. Fundora's got the gas tank. He's got the engine, his chin, his work rate's phenomenal. I'll probably get shit for this, but I don't care. A Paul Williams type performance, I think. I'm a fan of the Towering Inferno. He started out bit of a Nikolai Valuev, bit of a freak of nature, a bit of a freak show, like a circus attraction. Yeah, he was a big, tall, lanky guy, bit of a geek outside of the ring, but he's turned into a proper fighter. I'm becoming a fan of his. He's a warrior in the ring, and he seems like a nice kid on the mic as well.
Oh yeah, he gives good fights. I still think he's a knockout waiting to happen. I don't want to go negative right off the bat, but Lubin was able to find that angle with the left hand from the southpaw stance. I think a good orthodox fighter with a strong left hook is going to give him a really hard fight. And I think he'll find himself in even more trouble. If there was a star of that evening outside of Fundora, I'm giving it to Kevin Cunningham, not only for knowing when to pull the plug, but his advice in the corner was exactly right. And the Showtime crew was commenting on it too. It was exactly right. Don't stay right in front of this guy. Bam, bam to the body. Turn out. Bam, bam up top. Out. He had the right advice for him. 100%. It's just Lubin's fault for not executing it. Fundora is there for the taking. Don't kid yourself. But you can't stand right in front of him. What blows me away particularly about him, Steve, that I think is really incredible, is you also can't tie him up. He has this way about him where even if you're holding him, somehow his arms are still working. They're even, as lanky as he is, you might have him around the elbows, but he's still working underneath slightly, or he's got one hand free and he's punching. And he's throwing this uppercuts when there's a half a foot maybe in between the fighters. Really funky inside fighting for a big guy. Kind of like Riddick, like Riddick Bowe used to be able to pull off.
That's Fundora's style, though, isn't it? We always assume, a lot of people say he should be fighting on the outside. He's taller, he's longer, he's ranger. That's his natural game, but seemingly not. He's more comfortable on the inside. He's a workhorse. He's an inside pressure fighter.
Yeah. And I that's where he wants to be, and that's why. And where Lubin had a success was catching him at that mid range when he's coming into where he wants to be. And the problem is as much as he wanted to tie him up, he couldn't, and he found himself stuck on the ropes, just stuck in front of him. So Fundora got done what he had to get done. 4 of us picked Lubin to win. The betting markets, I believe that they opened with Fundora as a slight favorite, moved to even, and they moved even more towards Lubin's favor before the fight. So everybody was feeling pretty much as the panel felt last week. And Fundora just came out with a really good performance. But those flaws are there. I want to, if it's not Charlo next, I want him against Tim Tszyu. But I think they might put Tim Tszyu in with Tony Harrison.
It might well do. I think what you said there about Fundora Matty being there for the taking, and Cunningham's advice was sound, but Lubin wasn't able to execute simply because of what Fundora was doing to him. And I think there'll be a lot of fighters out there. I'm not saying he's going to beat the best. I think the likes of Charlo will beat him, but there'll be a lot of fighters out there thinking they can do a certain thing against Fundora and finding him in the ring a completely different proposition from what the game plan. Lubin clearly couldn't execute, and I think that is mostly down to Fundora's athleticism and his game plan.
Yeah, very much so. And I'll tell you what, though, Charlo is a fight that I think is particularly interesting for him, Steve, because the way I see that fight going is Charlo is either going to catch him at mid-range and knock him out sometime before the 7th, 8th round, or he's going to get worn down, and I think Fundora will stop him late. I think that fight's going one of two ways, because it's not like most inside fighters who are short and squat. It's a whole lot different to keep your distance from this inside fighter, because he can touch you, basically from anywhere in the ring with his reach. If you're in an 18-foot ring with that guy, you're barely safe in the corner if he's in the center.
I think he's a decent inside fighter, to be honest with you. Even against the weird guys, I remember there was something that was at round 2. I think Lubin maybe tried to tie him up, and he threw a left hand to the body or to the centre mass, and then stepped back and threw the right hook, then came back with another left uppercut to the body, finishing with another right uppercut. So I think he's a good inside fighter. Just the leverage he gets in these shots. I just can't believe he is. He's 6 feet something.
Like 6'6", I think, isn't he?
Yeah, it's clear that I just don't think he followed the game plan, to be honest with you. Lubin didn't follow the game plan, which should have been, he was doing it early doors, he was jabbing the body, and then once he started maybe getting the hands down, maybe tap a few upstairs and spin off to the side. Never done that, and he never really got the stamina going either as well. And once he started taking shots, like I said in round 2, once he started feeling that power, I think that was it. He just, any stamina that he's got, and then, as I say, the brittle side of him as well has probably just started falling apart. Gave a big account of himself in round 7, obviously, but after that, it was writing was on the wall, because, got to be honest, it was a beatdown, absolute beatdown.
That's what I'm saying, Andy. I don't think he could execute the game plan. Fundora would just not get off him. He just could not respond.
Just walked him over the ring, mate. Walked him over the ring, and even when he had his moments of kind of working his shots off, Fundora was right back on him. Uppercuts, hooks, and as I say, I don't know what reach he's got in that, but can you imagine, throwing those long whipping shots and trying to defend them? You're blocking one, next minute the uppercut comes in, and you're blocking uppercut, and another hook comes over. Guy must be an absolute nightmare to fight, either inside or even at mid distance. He must be an absolute brute. And I heard some of his comments afterwards after the fight saying that he loves to break faces. So he might look a bit goofy, but it sounds like he's a bit a nasty dude. So
you have to change your glove position fighting a guy like that. When you're on the outside, you try to keep it where more in front of your face, so that you're guarding against the straight punches, and then you kind of move towards your ears as you're getting in the mid range with them. But when you get into the chest, you really can't hook that well from that position. Like, that punch wasn't there as much when they were in close as the uppercut for Fundora. So at that point, I think with him, you just got to go in there and you got to get one of your gloves just underneath your chin when you're up underneath his chest and nullify it. And around the 5th, 6th round, like, Lubin started doing that a little bit more, and it looked like he started finding the answers. But it's just the pure volume of it. Some of those are going to get through, and eventually more and more did.
What about Fundora Castano, Matty? The punch stats would be unreal for that, wouldn't they?
That'd be a
good
blast.
Fights to get made at 154. It's still one of the best divisions in the sport just now, and there's a lot of good fights to get made there. Obviously,
and the PBC are making them.
Yeah,
the PBC continue to make them.
Well, Danny Garcia's moving up there too. I think that he's kind of interesting in the division. I'd actually, honestly, Danny Garcia against Fundora is a really interesting fight. I kind of want to see that. Speaking of a good left hook giving him hell.
Yep. To take aim, says Fundora is a parlay waiting to happen. Good comment from Ames there. On to the undercard. And you can take your pick as to what you saw, what you enjoyed, what you didn't. You were mentioning off air to me about Felix Marcial getting a bit of a suspicious one against Isaiah Hart. I didn't see this fight as well, and I didn't see the other fight involving this Jaleel Major Hackett, but I want to throw his name in at every opportunity. He's 18 years of age, from Washington. I've seen highlights of him, and apparently he spars Gervonta Davis. Real high things thought of this kid. Like I say, he's only 18. Jaleel Major Hackett fought against Jose Beloso last night. Don't know if he won or not. 6-rounder in only his 4th fight as well. That was the off TV stuff, and then obviously onto the TV stuff. Kevin Salgado with a draw against Bryant Goodfella Perella and Tony Harrison, Sergio Garcia. But I believe Martial maybe got away with one there in that, I think it was a 4-rounder, Andy.
Yeah, 4-rounder is his second pro fight. He'd kind of hung about Umar Marcial, who's one of Manny Pacquiao's fighters. He'd hung about for Tokyo. I think he won a bronze, I believe. He actually knocked out Vic Darchinian's nephew in the quarters, bad knockout. So the kid's got a bit of power. But anyways, last night he was wide open. Obviously, he's a southpaw, wide open to this straight right cross. Walked into 3 of them. Got dropped 3 times. Was down on the card 29-26. As you say, Steve, there's a 4-rounder. Somehow he come back in the 4th round, caught Isaiah Hart with a left hook or a straight left hand. Hart kind of did a wee dance. There was not really much of a fallout for Martial, and the referee, Raul Kais Jr., stepped in and called the fight off. Which, supposed to Martial, kind of looking at the scorecards, it was probably, he was probably glad it happened, because he was on the way to a shock earlier, to be honest. And there's a big thing expected of this kid, especially in the Philippines at least. And on that, the rest of the card that I caught was Tony Harrison's fight, who I thought boxed pretty well. It was more a kind of purist type performance. Even though Garcia kind of kept pressing, I thought Harrison, he was going to be getting caught. He was catching Garcia with 1-2s, single shots to the body, dropped the jab to the gut here and there, moved pretty well. I just thought Garcia kind of followed him a bit too much, attempted to throw his shots and kind of got picked off, as I says, with the kind of better boxing skills of Tony Harrison. I thought for a kind of most part of the fight. So, with Harrison happy to take that kind of half step back and then let his punches go, as Garcia kind of held his feet. So he was kind of working in his own spaces. So it was a decent performance by Tony Harrison, to be fair. He gets himself back in my good books at least, because he absolutely shat the bed that Charlo rematch and pissed me off. Lost me a bet for the first time in many years.
Well, and against Perala, he was awful too. I mean, this was night and day from that performance. He was wicked accurate in this fight. I mean, landed at will against Garcia.
Definitely one of his best performances since the Charlo first fight, definitely. So no doubt, somebody's mentioned Tim Tszyu possibly for the next fight. I know Harrison's been talking shit about him. So, as we mentioned, there's a lot of good fights to get made here. You've got Tim Tszyu coming up. Teixeira took a DQ loss there last night, I believe. So he might be out of the situation. Garcia, obviously, and then obviously there's no someone else fighting next week. Is it Charles Cornwell? Is he no? No, it's Cody. I'm thinking about. Obviously, Fundora now back in the mix here. Lubin maybe drop off. We've got Smith against Vargas, which is not a fight I'm looking forward to, but these guys will be in the mix. Leharaga still kicking about. Madrimov. So,
don't even mention Leharaga. He's been nice at the top.
He's been nice, a wee bit like Lubin, I suppose. Maybe hit his ceiling, but these guys, would be decent opponents. Leharaga, type fighters for maybe Harrison. I mean, he's not going to get a world title fight anytime soon. To be honest with you, I don't think, because obviously the mandatory defences are going to start turning out for the winner of Castagna against Charlo. So you might need to look at like your Cabanov or Teixeira or a Sorrow type fight.
Yeah, Tony Harrison, Matty. What do you think of his performance? I thought he was accurate. He was strong. He kept picking off Garcia. Garcia hadn't got the power. Interesting, it was a 10-rounder because Harrison has got a history of fading late in fights. Andy mentioned the Charlo fights there. I thought Harrison lost the first one and was doing really well in the second one until he got stopped. He's a classy boxer at times, picked his shots well, but the fact it was a 10-rounder did interest me. Maybe they haven't got full confidence in his stamina yet, but he is a very classy boxer.
Yeah, I think just because I don't think it was an eliminator or anything like that. I don't think there was a purpose for 12 rounds. Especially, on that card, I don't think they were trying to draw it out too much, given it started at 10 o'clock New York time and had 3 fights on it. So, give up a couple minutes here and there. That was a sharp, like Andy said, that's as good as I've seen him look before he got knocked out by Charlo, probably. The lackadaisical non-effort that he put in against Perala is in the rear view, but Harrison's a streaky fighter.
That Perella fight out, Matty, sorry, just his father had died around that time, I believe, so maybe that was playing on his mind, they suggested last night.
Yeah, and that's highly possible. But it just everything was more purposeful with Harrison. It wasn't just against Peralta. He was just trying to find answers the whole time, and it looked confused the entire fight. This fight, he never looked confused once. He would have gone 12 without issue. Garcia's not much of a puncher, anyways. He was so accurate. He took a guy with a tremendously high work rate. And brought that work rate down considerably. He threw a wide variety of punches, traditional 1-2s, hooks, uppercuts, body, head. He looked really good, and I would like to see him fight Tim Tszyu. I think he's a good test for Tszyu because he's definitely better off of the back foot than he is off of the front foot, so that'll work in his favor against Tszyu. And he's got a wider variety of shots than Gaucher does. So I think it'll be a different challenge for Timmy there. But I think he'd probably venture to say that he'll get the knockout late against Harrison. But it's still an interesting fight, and I'd like to see it because Harrison earned another shot to go up the ladder with that performance last night.
Yeah, TMT says Harrison is the best technician of the super welterweight division. His weaknesses are physical. I would agree with that one. Former opponent of Harrison, I think they boxed to a draw in the end, was Perella. Matty, he boxed to another draw there last night. I remember him getting stopped by somebody in the last few seconds by Jack Reese.
Abel Ramos.
Yeah, he never seems to get a rub of it, old Perella, but he's a decent boxer, a bit in the Andy Lee mould, maybe without the power. Nice jab on him, but he always does enough just to get a draw, a bit like a Badu Jack kind of figure.
Yeah, back-to-back draws. Don't see that very often. I watched the fight in double speed. I watched the first couple rounds, and I'm like, I can see how this is going to go. And, you get the highlights in between rounds if anybody landed a good punch, and there wasn't much. It was all about positioning and jab, and from my double-timed perspective, it looked like Peralta probably should have just eked it out, but it was a non-effort fight on both accounts. Salgado, Kevin Salgado, I believe his older brother is Juan Carlos Salgado. You would have expected a little bit more of that spirit that Salgado showed during his days at 126 and 130. But we didn't get that, just a flat performance. And you know what? I'm fine with draws when both guys are flat like that. If nobody deserves the win, nobody deserves the win. I think you got to earn it. Period. End of story.
Got to earn it, says Matty. Episode 469. Earn those likes. Hit the like button if you're enjoying what you're hearing. Hit the dislike if you don't. We won't see them anyway. See who's hanging around in the chat. The usual pond life, swimming there in the grime. Sad Ken's here with us. TMT. Chelsea Taylor. Yimmy Yappy. Adam Hughes. Joe Burns. Northern Monkey. Good to see Take Ames as always. Big A. Boxing Channel. Stephen Hill. Chase Athletics, our American correspondent. Albert Ross is with us as well. Liam Wynn, shout out to Liam over on Facebook. Who else have we got here? Luke Bignell. Good to see you, Luke. Chris Butler. A final couple before we move on to Golovkin, Slappy Gilmore, and Father Beans. Good to see you. Oh, Johnny Horsecock Nelson. Don't forget about old Horsecock. Dropping a bit of length in the chat. Over to Japan anyway. Yesterday afternoon, about 12 o'clock. Nice time for us. Gennady Golovkin getting the win over Ryota Murata. He got the stoppage eventually, Andy, but I thought Golovkin maybe starting to suddenly look a little bit tired, a little bit old. Some said it was rust. I noticed the boxing rant, and if that was Kenny or Vince were tweeting that out earlier, but his power bailed him out in the end. This was the first real obvious sign of slippage I've seen. At times he looked a little human, a little beatable, a little hurtable.
Yeah, Triple G, maybe just ain't Triple G anymore, to be honest with you. But I'd say that I didn't think his legs looked good. I kind of more kind of put it that his feet, you know how you kind of used to like walk across the ring and maybe cut off and cut you off in his pomp, maybe walk you to the ropes, cut you in at the corner and just like this savage your body. Didn't he really kind of do that as much? He kind of looked more kind of intent and more kind of bang it out. Sometimes he'll be kind of like roll under some shots. Mostly the right hand, basically. But he got hurt. I think it was the third round. He got hurt with a left hook to the body. And you could see him actually kind of covering it up pretty much any time Murata decided to try and go on the attack. It kind of surprised me, actually. I was actually kind of maybe surprised as to Murata kind of coming out so quick. on the front foot, and obviously kind of putting it on Golovkin. Actually, it's probably the right thing to do, because 40-year-old man, 2 years at the ring. Probably some of it was done to rust, but how much it is actually done to decline, maybe it's an activity, we don't know. But you need to remember, it's a 40-year-old man here who's had a lengthy pro and amateur career. Says Murata did very well, very early, very aggressive, landed some good heavy shots. But you can see with Triple G's jab, it's still quality jab, isn't it? It's still got a lot of power in it. Hooks, just gradually broke Murata down. And obviously, I think it was I forget what round it was when he knocked the mouthpiece out. But that for me was the turning point. I just think Murata's offensive output was wasn't there anymore. He kind of seemed to kind of back off. So yeah, look, it's a good one of sorts, shall I say. 2 years at the ring. Bear in mind that he's 40. He maybe looks every second of being 40-year-old. Had a long pro career. Made weight at 160 now for I forget how many fights he's had now as a pro, but it must be near close to 40, maybe slightly over that. Length amateur career, hundreds of fights as an amateur. That said, though, I think he's still good enough to fight the back end of the division, shall I say, kind of the lower ranks. I watched that last night with a wee bit trepidation, thinking that if that was Canelo there yesterday, it could have been a lot different, especially if Murata's hurting you to the body. And I know Murata's got decent power, but Canelo kind of feasts on the kind of body shots, and you just wonder as well as could a 40-year-old Golovkin at this point take a Canelo who's probably in his peak. So this is part of it's probably ring rust, part of it's probably straight up decline. But overall, it wasn't a great performance. Eventually, he broke his man down, and pretty much it. But it's all saying you just kind of beat Father Time. I believe if he does fight Canelo next, I believe Canelo will convincingly beat him this time, to be honest with you.
Andy, the body shots really took it out to him. I thought he was blown a little bit from the third round. He looked a little bit top heavy to me, like big, broad shoulders, little muscular boobs, like a stacked power puncher.
He was in tremendous shape, I must admit, actually. But again, I don't know. He trains at Big Bear all the time. I just don't know how much that takes out of you, to be honest with you. But as you say, he was certainly hoovering in the air after round 2 or round 3. Murata, I thought, gas after 5. If he hadn't gas after 5, it might be a different fight. Who knows? But the body shots at one point, as you say, were killing Golovkin. You could visibly see him trying to cover up the body, whereas when Murata was he could have maybe faked to go to the body and then brought it up to the head, because obviously he's bringing his hands down, he's not protecting his head. He didn't do that, but it kind of got to a point actually that he was actually working on a bit of bag work, to be honest with you. But Triple G just ended up punching the fuck out of him in the end. Those kind of downward punches that he does, it's just you just start taking a lot of punishment. But Triple G, that obviously we've seen him in his absolute peak. As I say, he wasn't cutting the ring off. The footwork is nowhere near what it used to be. That's a combination of everything: hard career, training camps, everything like that. But he's a 40-year-old pro, and he's still hanging with these guys at world level. So he's still got enough about him. But whether he can hang with Canelo or move up to 168, shall we say, maybe fight like a Bivol, or try to remember who else is up at that weight just now, it escapes my mind. But you would think he's going to struggle actually if he goes up in levels beyond like the Murata levels, like so Canelo. The Benavidez fight interests me actually. I'd like to see how that fight would go, but who knows.
Joe Burns is throwing in 179. He says Matty's predictions on fights are worse than Hayes, so that's an endorsement for Matty there. Des says, I'm convinced Triple G knew his opponent couldn't hurt him. He just stayed with him and threw. Those looping shots on top of the head. He's slowed down, but he's still a savage. I'd also question Banks, as in Jonathan Banks. If Murata hadn't slowed down, then Golovkin could have been in a bit of trouble. And Matty, maybe. At 40 years of age, Andy mentioned there, he can't be inactive anymore for me. This is his final run at glory. He can't be inactive. Get the rust off. If it's going to have this final run, it's got to happen quickly for me now. No more messing around.
Yeah, one, I think his run is going just straight to Canelo for the next fight. If Canelo gets through Bivol, fine. And that's the end of the road. Win or lose, I think it's going to be lose. Because what I saw in this fight, even though he won and he was able to pull it together, when we were talking about this fight last week, I said, Murata's really only got 2 punches. He's got that right hand and he's got a left hook to the body. That left hook to the body was almost enough to beat Golovkin. Early in the fight, It was looking like Murata wasn't even moving as well as Derevyanchenko. He wasn't providing nearly the dynamic offense that Sergey did. But that left hook to the body was still giving Golovkin fits. I think he definitely was slowed down by him at a couple of points. But then when he knocked out Murata's mouthpiece, it was over from there. Murata claims he has a skull that's 1.5 times the size of a normal human, thickness of a normal human skull. And he thought that meant that it'd be really hard to knock him out. Well, Golovkin still pulled it off. That right hand he hit him with basically froze Murata in time. But I'll tell you what, this slower Golovkin, whose activity is definitely down, whose body is definitely not absorbing shots the way it used to, and who's not going to the body as much as he was. I think he didn't go to Murata's body nearly enough. But I really think all roads are going to lead to Canelo. Should Canelo Bivol go in Canelo's favor? And I think Canelo's probably going to stop him on a body shot. If not on the shot itself, what he lands upstairs will be the result of that body work.
Chris Butler says, such a shame Golovkin never got the big fights in his prime. Matty, you mentioned about Golovkin's lack of body work. Against Canelo, I thought the reason he didn't go to the body as much was because he was worried that he was going to get countered because he wasn't fast enough to get in and get out. But what's the excuse for not going to Murata's body, I suppose, as much?
Yeah, and I don't think he had much of one. I didn't see him land more than 8 or 9 significant body shots the whole fight. So that's I just think that might have been a strategic error on his part. And considering he's working with Jonathan Banks, not that big of a shock in its own way, because Banks it really isn't one who teaches much about going to the body, right? When he was at the helm with Klitschko, Vlad didn't exactly become a prolific body puncher from that point forward, did he?
No, not really. But then I suppose the heavyweights, few and far between with the body shots, because again, they're big lumbering fellas who can't get in and out. So I don't know what Jonathan Banks' style is, Matty. I mean, as a pro, we kind of saw his style, but is he the association with Manny? Is he getting these gigs? I mean, why are people employing Banks, do you think, Matty?
It's because he's not getting his 20%. That's why, Unable Sanchez. Remember he took umbrage when Granny Golovkin got that big DAZN deal, $100 million or whatever it was. And next minute, fucking poor Sanchez is on the sidelines moaning and bitching like fuck. You can bet Banks is probably getting about 2%, if that.
Aye, he's probably getting a percentage in DAZN stocks, isn't he?
Exactly. Golovkin's all about the bag these days, baby.
Well, I think he definitely teaches Kronk's style, but I think Sugar Hill does a much better job of that currently.
I've been calling to let Golovkin fight Canelo, have his final payday, let him get knocked out. He's earned it after the first 2, but I do have reservations after watching this fight as to whether I want to see that spectacle. I have no real love for Golovkin more than any other fighter, but his fights were a spectacle. We enjoyed it. He brought fans together back in the day. When Golovkin was fighting at the weekend, people enjoyed it. And
big drama show,
baby. He was active as well. That's the thing.
He used to fight all the time. Yeah. Monaco or wherever he went.
Yeah, exactly. He'd have a couple of fights in America or fighting Europe, maybe Germany somewhere.
He cleaned out middleweight other than Sergio Martinez.
Who ducked him?
Yeah, there you go. And I love Sergio, but they didn't want that fight. Not at all. So I mean, you got to think about everybody that he beat. He beat Gill. He beat Macklin. He beat Barker. He beat Murray. He beat Chavez Jr.
Sturm ducked him as well. Actually, that was when all that WBA regular title was kind of popped up as well.
Yeah, he beat Kelly Pavlik. He put Zinzaruk on his ass like 4 times. It's the guy, or excuse me, I was thinking Martinez that did that. God, they kind of overlap because they fought a lot of the guys. I'm sorry.
Martinez beat Pavlik and.
I think you merged Golovkin and Martinez. He's going into one super fighter there.
Sorry. I wanted
he knocked out Paul Williams and then he knocked out Coxer.
Jesus Christ. But I mean, between the two of them, they essentially cleaned out middleweight with overlap between them. The only fight that really could have been made that mattered at the time that didn't get made essentially would have been Martinez against Canelo or Martinez against Golovkin. So you got to give him credit for everything that people might have wished that he was. I think you really have to consider Golovkin Golovkin is probably, taking heavyweight out of the realm. Heavyweight's its own beast, right? I think you might have to consider that Golovkin's the best single weight champion since Hagler. Correct me. There's people can have their opinions on that.
Hopkins.
No,
Hopkins.
Hopkins at middleweight.
Here's a question for you. Does Hopkins beat Golovkin? My answer is yes.
What? So what years are we going right here? Are we saying like Hopkins at like 35, or are we saying?
I'm talking Hopkins that won the middleweight tournament
against Keith Holmes. No, he won it off Trinidad, didn't he? The middleweight.
Trinidad, aye. Any Hopkins run about that year or maybe a couple of years before?
Peak Hopkins is Trinidad, then through to Eastman, through to De La Hoya. That little run was peak Trinidad middleweight, wouldn't it have been?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Pete Hopkins middleweight. Sorry, not Trinidad.
Yeah, possibly. Aye.
And he was kind of
avoided. Hopkins went from like 160 to 175. Missed it 168 entirely. Wasn't really a bona fide light heavyweight, to be honest with you.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Single weight champion too. Like people that make a jump, they kind of have their own resume, right?
He had a lot of defenses though, Hopkins.
He did. He had 20 or 21. I think Golovkin equaled that or surpassed that last night.
Hopkins' run was definitely stronger, wasn't it? Because he was fighting the likes of Robert Allen, like I said, pretty sure he unified with Holmes for the WBC. Trinidad was coming up in weight, we all know that. But the likes of Golovkin, I heard Terry on his podcast talking about this as well, saying about Tony playing with Canelo and Golovkin. I don't think anyone necessarily plays or easily beats Pete Golovkin. I know we can look back with rose-tinted spectacles, but it's not an easy out. I'm not saying he would beat Hopkins or Tony, or I would pick Hopkins and Tony to probably both beat Triple G, but he's not an easy out for anybody. That hard-punching version that we saw on the way up.
Absolutely not. And you need to remember as well, James Toney was like depending on what he turned up on the night because
exactly, or if he was in weight and all,
if he was away the weight, or if he was actually in the mood for it or whatever. You say Golovkin, iron jawed, great power, great stamina. At his peak, he could cut off the ring, he make you work without throwing a punch, and just mentally harassed you the whole fight. And then once he got you together, well, look at he did to fucking Macklin, man. Fucking punched holes in Macklin's ribs. Macklin went down greeting just about.
Roy Jones Jr. would have fucked up Golovkin, though. That's the one middleweight matchup you put out there. I think he would have fucked Golovkin up.
Fucked up in what, like, stopped him?
Possibly so, because I think Roy's control of distance at middleweight and his sheer speed. I mean, he could stay feet out of range of you and just pop in real hard. And Golovkin doesn't tuck the way that Hopkins was, so that he was able to survive those hard punches. I don't know that Roy stops him, but I think he would have beat the shit out of Golovkin.
Question in the chat there, actually. I forget who it was. Let me try and get the guy's name, actually. He'd asked the question. Patrick Sweeney. What is Triple G's best win?
Canelo won.
Yeah. I don't know. You're looking like Jacobs or...
Derevchenko.
I don't think... I really think he drew with Derevchenko at best. Fuck.
But going on what the actual results, I suppose.
Yeah. It's not his best win, but do you remember when he beat the shit out of Gabe Rosado and his dad's want to kind of like his trainers want to pull Rosado out, and his dad's like, no, don't. He's like, we need to kill it. We need to pull him. He's gonna get killed in there, dude. Remember the Shida knockout as well in France? Holy fuck, man! That was sent back to the orange.
Shida had a beard too. That guy had a straight fucking beard, and Golovkin obliterated him.
The Curtis Stevens fight was good too. Not that Stevens was a match for him, but he was a shit talker, wasn't he? With all like the images of Triple G and the coffin and all, and Triple G just dealt with him in the ring. That was. I remember being on the pod around that time, and we were buzzing.
The shit out of him.
Yeah.
He fucking dropped. Remember he put him at the first or second round. He's got that look in his face.
Yeah, the Proxer as well. When he beat Proxer, that was his coming out party, wasn't it, in Verona that night, 2012.
Matt Murray, I remember him taking a hellacious beating to the body.
I was talking fighting Barker around that time as well.
I really think his win over Gil was really solid too, because Gil was an underrated fighter. Cotto fought him when he was definitely past his best, and he weight drained him. But
because not middleweight.
Yeah, Gil won, and I thought Gil won that fight against Barker too. That was a good fight.
Oh, it was a great fight.
And so I really think that win is quite underrated because he just
know
blasted him out of there. I mean, he hit Gil at the same time Gil hit him. And that was basically the story of his career.
That Gil Barker fight, see when Barker got dropped, Gil took his foot off the gas, and that's where he lost the fight. It allowed Barker to get back into it.
Yep. Because he put him down with a body shot too, didn't he?
Yeah, it was a brutal one. He was rolling over agony, and on the floor.
I told this story before, Andy, but I remember being on the BoxRec forums around that time, and there was a guy on, and he'd been like an amateur coach for 20 or 30 years, and he said, "I've never seen anybody get up from a body shot like that before, man. That was true balls. Barker was class that night. I love that fight."
Maybe I'm trying to remember. There was maybe like Agati getting up for like Mickey Ward.
Yes.
Marcos Maidana against Khan. These are the kind of ones that kind of stick out. They get up and they're fucking struggling. But that's the thing about Golovkin last night. See when he took that left hook to one of the early shots, you could see him that he was stepping off and he's trying to stand up straight, stretch it out. It was really bugging him, that fucking shot. Like,
he doesn't handle it to the body well. I mean, I watched that Derevyanchenko fight last week. Look forward to this fight, and I forgot just how many times he was subtly hurt to the body by Derevyanchenko, where he got with a couple and he needed the distance. You saw him puff, take a big breath. Like he doesn't handle it. It hasn't gotten better with age. And I that's why I think Canelo stops him. I think he's going to beat him up to the body, especially since Canelo's no foot speed magician by any stretch, but this version of Golovkin is quite a bit more of a plotter than he was 10 years ago.
Sad Ken says Golovkin versus Pirog would have been a barn burner. Well, that was actually in the works, but Pirog ended up with a back injury.
I mean, that's he's become one of the biggest myths now. Actually,
yeah, it's difficult to know, isn't it? Really, about him, because I know he beat Jacobs, but then after that, the injuries curtailed his career.
I think he had one defense. I think it was Lucas Kachelny. I think I got that name wrong. Maybe a Slovakian guy, if I get his name, or Jan Jevic, whatever his name was. And then he kind of like disappeared after that. It was back problem, I believe. Once the back starts to go, it can be problematic after that. But,
well, especially him, because he wasn't like that upright European style. He got down low. Yeah, it's not going to work.
Keith Thurman said Jan Zavik was one of the nicest guys he ever met. Andy, lovely fella.
Yeah,
not much of a fighter, but yeah, nice fella apparently.
Apparently, he's on the commissioning board now, Slovakian, or he's a supervisor, Slovenia or Slovakia. I forget where he's from again. Somewhere around about that area, anyway.
Yeah, I think it was Slovakia. Sad Ken says McCallum would do Golovkin. This is what I'm saying. I'm not saying McCallum would or would not beat Golovkin, but do him. I mean, what are we talking here? Nobody walks through Golovkin. No. Pete Golovkin had a chin of cast iron. None of these guys walk through him like he's like a bit of wet paper.
I mean, he's still never been down.
Yeah.
You could throw out Julian Jackson's name and Jerry McClellan and say, they would do Golovkin. In what way? We've seen
maybe McCallum, Andy, because of the body work. I can see where maybe Sad Ken's coming from there, actually.
Yeah, possibly. But he was an all-round good technician, McCallum. I mean, that's another fight we need to look at for punches for the past, actually, is a trilogy between Tony and Mike McCallum.
I think Hearns against Golovkin would have been really fucking interesting. I really do.
Hearns has got that Fundora vibe about him, doesn't he? Though he's got the long reach, the fucking long hooks, and the fucking whipping shots, and the major power. Which is actually telling, because coming out the amateurs, Hearns was not a puncher. He was more like a boxer, where he turned into like a boxer puncher. So it just shows you that even though you weren't a puncher back in your amateur days, you can actually turn into one in the later. It's all about technique, I suppose. They're not really down to power.
He's that right hand he landed on Duran is one of the biggest punches landed in the history of boxing. Like
fake the jab to the body to like you centre mass, and then fucking Duran bit on the feint, brought the arms down, and the fucking right hand came right down the middle. No defense.
One of the all-time great chins in boxing too, and it done.
Never before or since was Duran handled like that.
Yeah, that was. Fuck.
I was going to say, the thing is, just briefly going back to Golovkin, I know we're going down a rabbit hole here, but even like some people now, historical revisionism, forgetting in his prime, like making him out to be some kind of a plodder. Now, he was plodding on Saturday, but I remember speaking to Macklin about a year or so after he got knocked out by Golovkin. He was at a club show in Belfast, and he said one of the things about him was his footwork, the way he closed the distance on you. He was working you, even when he wasn't even throwing. He was just constantly closing the angle, shutting you off. They forget what a good technique. Like, it's not for my job here to stand here and defend Golovkin, but we've got to be fair. What he was like at his peak.
You got to put it in, as I says, mate, you got to put it in context as well. As I says, at his peak, the foot movement, his ability to mentally harass you. I mean, they say boxing's mental. Well, if he's mentally harassing you to the point that it's fucking, I'm shattered.
You've got nowhere to go.
Exactly. If I've only got to get, I'll go to the ropes, I'll cover up for 5, and I'll maybe swing off. But when you get to the ropes, you think a left hook to the body. Next minute, you're fucking getting counted to 10. That's what happened to Macklin at least. She'd got his lights turned completely out. So you're talking about a guy, he's absolute peak. Now, we're not saying that he's not got his flaws. Obviously, he's got his flaws. He can be tagged. He can't fight, probably going on the back foot as such. He maybe can't fight off the back foot or going back in straight lines. But as an offensive machine, my God, it was pound for pound ranked at one point. But one of the most vicious punchers, one of the fighters that you were always willing to kind of happy to sit up and watch because you knew you were going to get either a knockout or somebody was going to get knocked out at least. But look, they can throw all the names that they want. Even any of the champions like your Haglers, Leonard, Nunn, Tony, Taylor, Hopkins, whoever you want to throw out there, Triple G hangs with all of those guys. If he wins, he maybe wins a handful of fights. I don't want to pick out names, but on any given night, Golovkin could be successful. Maybe they beat Cotto, they beat Martinez. I think they beat Pavlik. Probably they beat Jermaine Taylor. I think
that Pavlik fight would have been fucking great, dude.
Yeah, Hopkins, I don't believe so. Tony, again, it comes down to kind of on the night because it's more about has he been.
Yes, I agree with that.
Training for it. Michael Nunn, who was technically proficient, very good fucking long revenge fighter as well. But he could
once
be
it went late, and I'm a non-fan, but late on you catch him to the chin.
You could be caught late.
Yeah.
Hagler's a class of his own. Obviously, maybe the top guy of all time at middleweight. But I think he's Hagler a good fight, and I think Hagler would give him a good fight as well.
Yeah,
but I think Hagler would probably win over the 15-round distance. Who knows? But he was an elite fighter. There's no two ways about it. He's been ducked. He was a long-reigning champion. He will probably go to the Hall as well, possibly. But people saying he gets destroyed off X, Y, or Z, and that peak for peak, no chance.
Well said, Andy. Final comments then before we close out. Des says, if Triple G fights Charlo or Canelo next and gets well beat, will he be remembered like Vasily Girov? Great fighters, but just didn't beat the big names. Yeah, Girov had a lot of good wins, but not great wins. And then that one step up against Tony obviously lost. And I think he ended up at heavyweight and then falling into Bolivian, as Mike Tyson would say. JG says, Triple G was a beast a few years back, but seeing him against Murata shows you where he is. Canelo stops him, the gas tank's gone, while Canelo's has got better. Just before we go on to the undercard with Andy, Matty, first of all from you, we're going off on a tangent, but why not? It's episode 469, we might as well. I personally wanted Canelo in his next two fights to go the Charlo Benavidez route rather than Bivol Golovkin, but we know where he's chosen, we know where he's going. Would you have rather seen Canelo going against Charlo Benavidez, or are you happy with the decisions he's made?
I think this works out well, because I think that there's just money and business sense. A trilogy between Golovkin and Canelo is needed because I think all real boxing fans see that one as 1-1, regardless of how we think the outcome is going to be. And I think for Canelo, a light heavyweight title fight against Bivol, I mean that's an interesting fight. It's a ballsy fight. And I think that has much more historical value for his resume as a fighter.
Happy Mob Kelly's jumped on the call. Just before we go to him, Andy, just a quick rundown of what you saw on the undercard. I only saw Junto Nakatani. Tell you what, he's a big old unit, that fella, for a flyweight against Yamauchi. Left him in a bit of a mess. And then I saw the back end of Masayuki Ito against Yoshino, but it was all about Nakatani, really. He looks pretty decent there, Andy, down at Fly.
Yeah, he's looking pretty solid, to be honest with you, mate. He was obviously levels above the guy that he fought, in my opinion. Beat the absolute shit out of him. Miles above him. Broke his nose, I think, probably round 2. And this was the guy whose nose just kind of seemed to morph into his forehead at one point, actually. That's how bad it was. Long arms, mean intentions, jabbed really well. And in the end, just beat the guy down, beat the absolute shit out of him. So, I like to see the Sonny Edwards fight, to be honest. But obviously, I think Edwards is kind of facing, or he's wanting the Martinez fight. I think Edwards is probably a wee bit too quick for the guy. but he is tall, he is big for the weight, actually, really rangy. So it'd be interesting to see if he was to tag Edwards, if he would, how he'd react to it. But obviously, you've got to try and catch him first, actually, if you can land a shot on him. Undercard as well, I'm trying to remember. Yoshino again, was it Ito or Ito, what was pronounced? I thought it was a bit of a scrappy fight, to be honest with you. Fair bit of kind of, not so much hugging and that, but a wee bit kind of close quarters. I thought Yoshino was pretty much well ahead. I thought Ito, maybe with his experience, maybe would have been enough to kind of see him kind of win the fight. I think he got badly cut. Fight got called off, and it went to the cards, technical decision, and it was pretty wide, I believe, on the cards, to be honest with you. So I thought it was a decent undercard. Not so much that fight as such, but I thought that Nakatani fight against Yamauchi was really good, especially when you see guys kind of like going to war like that. And Nakatani, as I say, is obviously coming in with the intentions to seek and destroy. So I'm all done for that type of fighting. I think that's all I kind of caught on the card, to be honest with you, mate.
And no problem, Andy. We'll go on to Ryan Garcia shortly if we have to. Before we do that, Rapping Rob Kelly's here to save us. Good evening, Roberto. How are you doing on this glorious Sunday evening?
Yeah, doing good so far. Anyway, so far so good. That could pick up or deteriorate depending on the remainder of the call, really. But you're hosting tonight, Steve, are you?
Just watch the traffic.
It's going to be grand then.
Just watch the traffic this week.
Yeah, nearly got fucking done over on live on the air last week, didn't I?
Fucking hell, man.
I don't know. In fairness, I think my reflexes were shot last week at that stage.
Yeah, felt like Golovkin.
I'm not going to say perfect segue there. Golovkin, but a Lubin. We've gone through the two boys. Who got the worst beating of the weekend, Rob? Was it them or was it you?
Who got the best Lubin of the weekend? Is the question that we should all be asking. Look, I think fucking kind of said in the chat, I was live tweeting to you guys, so it's not going to be a surprise my reaction to the Golovkin fight, but I honestly couldn't believe how bad he looked after 4 rounds. And listen, don't get on me, Golovkin fanboys, about this, because I am a Golovkin fanboy, but I am a realistic one as well. At 40 years of age and 16 months out of the ring, he looked every bit his age, I thought. Like seriously in trouble. I thought like he might look like he was going to get stopped later on down the fight after the first 3 rounds. He was breathing so heavy. The body work was taking it out of him from Murata, but found a way to win like a champion does, and you can't take that away from him. Scrappy performance by his own standards. The feet look heavy now. I'm not having this whole thing. I think some of I don't know who the DAZN commentary team were, but some of them were saying like that Golovkin was never a boxer. Piss off. Like, I'm not having that at all. His amateur pedigree, the way he used to shuffle out a distance when he was a younger and fitter guy was actually something to behold. He never took, I don't know, everyone goes on about Golovkin's iron chin, but apart from the Canelo fight, or up until that point of the Canelo fight, there wasn't that many times where you actually saw Golovkin get caught with something clean either. And when he did, he used to shake it off. So he obviously has a chin and durability and resilience. And it made for an entertaining fight. This version of Golovkin versus that version of Murata made for an entertaining fight, but I've been saying it anyway for a year and a half. I think if Canelo fights him now, he stops him, and I think it's purely a payday. I think there was better fights out there that we could have seen Canelo in. I'm not happy with that fight at all. I think it's a fucking DAZN buster kind of a deal. I would way prefer to see Canelo or Golovkin. Actually, I would way prefer to see Canelo against one of the Charlos. Not saying that they're more of a test than fucking Gennady Golovkin. That's not what I'm getting at, but we've seen they've done it. Golovkin's not knocking out Canelo. We've seen that already. He hasn't been able to knock him out as much as we might think he won the first fight. He wasn't able to knock Canelo out. He's not going to be able to knock him out now either, and he's definitely not getting a decision. So what is this, like a pointless endeavor or a chance for Canelo to stop Golovkin? And I personally don't want to see him going out like that. I think it's a pity he was avoided during his middleweight reign. But it is what it is, and here, this is where we are. He's hanging out for that third Canelo fight, and he wants it, so he's getting it. But I think there was better opposition out there, apart from the Bivol fight, which is a dangerous fight for Canelo. Doesn't maybe offer much as a puncher, maybe, but it's a tricky night for him. But we've seen this tricky night again for Canelo. We've seen Billy Joe Saunders, we've seen Caleb Plant. Bivol, I think, is a level up from the two of those, but I think it's still going to be a similar outcome. And even if Bivol shades it, he's not getting it on the card. So I'm not saying there's no point in anybody fighting Canelo, but I think there was more exciting fights for the consumer than Golovkin Canelo 3 on the horizon.
Yeah, I threw that question out earlier, and I tend to agree. I would have rather seen him, Rob, take the Charlo Benavidez route. Shout out to you, Prediction League Master. You picked Fundora last week to beat Lubin, and that's exactly what he did.
Yeah, well, look, he's fucking 6'5", man. Like, I'm not saying he's good. I was slaughtering him on the show last week, if I remember correctly, for his techniques and his fundamentals. But he's still 6'5" in a fucking 154 pounder's body, and Lubin is like 5'9" or something. Is he 5'8"? So that was a big ask. Fun fight, by the way. Fun fight for Fundora. I'm actually on the Fundora hype train again now after that. I want to see where it goes, because as well as that, big guys.
Like, I'm the same, mate. I'm on that fucking train now as well.
Well, in it, like with big guys like that, like say big guys in smaller weights. So you look back over the years, like Mark Breland, Tommy Hearns. Like, I'm not comparing them to Mark Breland or Tommy Hearns, by the way. Don't get that. That's not what I mean. But when those guys who are so much taller at the weight class, when they get knocked out, it's always way more fun to watch. Remember the Barkley knockout of Hearns, the fucking the Aaron Superman Davis knockout of Mark Breland. They always kind of tend to go. I think Michael Nunn and James Toney falls in that category as well. Nunn was quite tall, so I'm looking forward to
Martinez, Paul Williams.
Another great shout. So there you go. Like, that's the. I'm going to ride the fucking Fundora hype train until the wheels fall off at this point. I'm interested to see him in better matchups against better opponents. Let's see it. Like, he fucking brings something interesting, big, awkward, like, freaking nature. Like, how the fuck is he getting into 154 pounds at 6'5"? Like, it's insane. So,
what do you think about his inside work? Because I thought, fighting a weird guy, you'd be okay, I'll keep it at a distance. But I thought he came in close with the guy. He's just pounding the shit out of him.
But that's what the fucking frustrates me about looking at him. Because if I was boxer size Benn now, and I'd be looking at the exits and the entries and the exit points and the entry wounds, I'd be trying to get him to box a different style. But he doesn't fucking fight the style of his size at all. He fights on the inside most of his career, like, so he's entertaining as fuck, man. Let's get more of Fundora. Like, let's get him out there. Him versus Conor Benn, catch weight.
Conor Benn.
I was saying earlier though, Bob, you look at him and you think you've got a strategy. Lubin's people had a strategy, but executing it when you got that big octopus or hanging all over you is a different matter.
I don't give a fuck how good or bad you are. Look at Floyd Mayweather fighting fucking Logan Paul, or which one of the Pauls it was. He couldn't knock him out because he's too fucking big. He's like Floyd. Like, that's a terrible analogy. They're going to come for my head after that one. But you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Like, it's like as good or as bad or whatever you think Fundora's skill set is. Go and do something to him, because you're giving up 6-7 inches of height on him. Like, well, I saw somebody on Twitter say, Sebastian Fundora is a height bully. He needs to move up to fucking 200 centimeters or whatever the fuck it is. But yeah, no, like, he's a fun he's a fun guy, like, isn't he? He's living up to the name Fundora. He's entertaining fights, and he's going to give everybody a contest at this stage. And if he gets wiped out, he'll come again. Like, he'll have another chance, or he can move up a weight. He can.
I'm sure the boys here, Rob. He was saying post fight, he's wanting to fight Charlo next, so he's talking big. But he's also mentioning he's a bit of a nasty dude. He comes across quite goofy or geeky in that, but he was mentioning, for example, that he loves to break people's faces. Consider how Lubin looked there last night.
Well, Lubin definitely had a break. Lubin looked like there was 4 or 5 people had jumped him in the fucking dressing room, didn't he, by the end of the fight? Like,
look at that. Look at the picture of him there.
But that's what 154 pounders. That's what you got to deal with. Like, how do you get in? How do you get close to this guy? And if you get close, by the way, he can fight on the inside. So yeah, Fundora did the biz.
Clearly a hard man. Old Fundora. Talking of exciting fights, there wasn't one over on our final instalment in the Alamo Dome, San Antonio, Texas. Ryan Garcia in the main event, back in action. One of the most embarrassing things about this, Matty, was the countdown. He's been out for so long. Everyone's desperate to see King Rye back in the ring. I mean, I was excited to see him back from the point of view of the 135-pound division. We need fighters in there. We need them active. But going in against Emmanuel Tagoe, looked like he was fighting a Poundland Hank Lundy. The size difference was absolutely crazy between the two of them.
Yeah, I'm just happy to see that the some of the pygmy tribes are trying their hands at boxing, Steve. It's good for them. Good for them. Take the L, take the paycheck, and you go back home, right? I'll tell you what. Other than rounds 2 and 10, if you saw, one round, you saw them all. Garcia landed a clean uppercut, put down Tagoe in the second, and then it was just basically him walking around the ring and landing the occasional right hand, the occasional body shot as Tagoe jabbed and moved his way around the ring. He didn't stand in very much. It was pretty boring. We'll see how the Joe Goosen, Ryan Garcia combination works out. It didn't work out in realms of entertainment, but it was never competitive at any point, so they got the W. But considering where he left off out of the ring, last year off that great knockout victory, and coming back here to that, you talk about losing stock during that time. The only person whose stock from 135 that might have gone down more was Teofimo Lopez, and that's just for the way he acted in reaction to that defeat to Kambosos, and he's not even 135 topic anymore. So if Garcia is not careful, he could find himself left out, because Golden Boy isn't a huge promoter at this point in time. Talent exists elsewhere. So if he wants those fights, if he wants that legacy, he's got to be careful. I know DAZN is working with Kambosos, and even though this Haney fight is over on top, I think it's on ESPN. But it's just, I can't think of, like I said, it's hard to think of a guy whose stock has gone down that much in a year. Inactivity and a negative presence on social media of complaining all the time, it's not the right look.
He's been busy the last 16 months, so Matty's got tattoos.
Yeah, what does he have? Does he have a sword? Does he have a sword on his back now? It's like, what is he trying to look like, fucking Thor Bjornsson or something?
He's been busy anyway. We getting the tatties put on his Ebbs would say.
It's so weird. It's like, and I don't trust when people do that. Like, some people are into tattoos and shit, but do you remember, like, it seemed like every time Miguel Cotto took a loss, he got more tattoos?
Yeah, it's like early life crisis, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I'm securing my manhood by writing on myself. I'm going to get these Chinese symbols on it that says Man of War. Nobody told you that it says Donkey Show Handler. You got to be careful with these translations. I'm sorry, I don't trust the fucking translations of Chinese in Puerto Rico.
Where does Goosen train out of these days? Because I noticed Garcia's apparently moving to Texas, apparently. So is that where Goosen's based?
No, I thought Goosen was always West Coast, LA or something, wasn't it?
Tax reasons, obviously.
I don't know. But the thing is with Garcia, he hadn't been annoying me as much, because even for his out of the ring antics, at least he'd been getting in the ring, he'd been aggressive, he'd been knocking people out. He went on that little run. He knocked out Juno, and then Luke Campbell was at the end of it, the beginning of last year, I think it was. And I thought to myself, yeah, fine, at least he's aggressive, he's explosive, Andy. He's not afraid to let the shots go, and he's backing it up in the ring, and then he goes missing for 16 months or whatever it was. Even when he hadn't been annoying me as much. But I'll tell you one thing that was annoying me on last night, Tago's holding. Now, there are different types of holding in boxing, but Tago's was just the most egregious holding. He was just blatantly leaning in, wrapping his arms around like a bear hug. The referee should have done a little bit better for me. Garcia, no, he seemed happy to take the breaks. What do you think about Tago leaning in and hugging, giving him a little cuddle at times?
I've never seen the fight, mate. I only read the fight reports, and some guys were saying that. I know some guys were saying that Tago would actually really just stunk it up, and obviously after the knockdown, it was pretty much cemented after that. As for like Garcia annoying me, what annoys me really about fighters these days, or this generation of fighters, I feel like I'm sounding like an old man here, which I'm probably getting to at this point, but when they start clout chasing off someone else's victory, for example, like Kambosos when they beat Lopez, or when Lopez beat Lomachenko, you've got fucking Haney and Garcia, that'll fucking I'll fight him next, just basically try to ride on the coattails of someone else's victory. This kid's fought 3 times in 3 years, right? He's supposed to be coming in at his peak at some point, and he's talking like he's like the next coming fucking Roberto Duran, or he's going to be like clean up all these belts. He just needs to get his shit outside the ring in order first. Get his mental health sorted out if it is an issue. Maybe boxing is no for him actually if mental health is a problem. To be honest with you,
didn't Roberto Duran have like 70 fights by the time he was 25?
But Roberto Duran used to love getting guys in the gym up at fucking Stillman's actually. He didn't care who they were, even if it was a white collar guy. Get them in here, I'll fucking smash fuck at them. But that's segueing. But it's just talking about like say Garcia. I just need to see him step it up. Maybe fighting guys like Tago, really about that level over the next couple of fights would do him the world of good actually, because he needs to be active. He needs to be fighting, toughish oppositions before he's fighting for world titles, because he's way doing the pecking order at this point. I don't see him ranked very highly in any of the bodies, to be honest with you, unless things changed over the last couple of weeks. So he's going to have to kind of start earning his position. And again, obviously, it comes down to the kind of social factor as well. He's got the following, he's got the looks, he's got, he's got, as I say, he's got a bit of hype behind him, but that's not going to carry so far. At the end of the day, I hate to see talent go to waste when it doesn't work hard enough, because talent only carry you so far. It's when you have to fucking dig it out. That's when you fucking know you've got the minerals. The guys are going to stick in there when the talent's no fucking going to fucking pull you out the fire. You've got to dig it out, basically go into the trenches. I've started to see that for him, because he's had it all his own way at this point. Obviously, he got off the floor against Campbell, did really well, because I thought he was sparkled, that's the way he went off that shot. And I still believe he's carrying a bit of glass as well. I think if he meets Davis, for example, I think Davis sparks, to be honest with you.
I think it's his defence, Andy. I think he's too open at times.
Yeah.
His chin is straight up in the fucking air when he's coming in.
That's what I was going to say. See when he throws that left, took the chin, it's fucking up, airing out in the breeze, just begging to be hit. So a wee bit kind of tight. I think like Romero would fucking probably beat him, actually, to be honest with you, because Romero's, with some of his shots, with the angles he throws and uppercuts, I could see maybe catching Garcia with something. So we'll just need to see. But as I say, I asked you guys if there anything worth on that DAZN card worth watching. You said no, don't bother. I read the fight reports, as I says, and it didn't seem to be impressive for what I read, at least. So I'm not going back to watch it, to be fair with you.
Rob, we're all about the important issues on this podcast, as you well know. Tell you what, Ryan Garcia linking up with Joe Goosen, it's the perfect match made in heaven for me, especially if Joe's get-up has anything to go by last night. That denim, specially made denim for the occasion, embroidered RGs all over the back. What do you think?
A match made in denim. I think I've got my doubts over that as a long-term partnership, to be honest with you. I like Goosen. I think in theory, it's a good move for Garcia to kind of go, step away from maybe the glamorous side of the Reynosos and go with the kind of back to grassroots. Joe Goosen, been there, done it, trained umpteen world titles, been involved in iconic moments in the sport. On paper, it looks like a good match, but I just think, like, what must Goosen be looking at when he sees this fucker coming to the ring? I just don't. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not. I was high on the Ryan Garcia hype train, like very, very high on him. I thought like when he done the business against Campbell, that was a legitimate litmus test for him at that point of his career. And you're thinking, if he comes through that and he comes through it spectacularly, like he did with the body shot, like get up off the floor, stop him. What more do you want? Like, he gets up off the floor, he stops him, he's calling Tank Davis, he's calling Devin Haney, he's telling Devin Haney get back in line, he's the Gmail champ, he's doing everything right. And then we get this break from the sport that's been said is a mental health break. And like, look at, mental health is so important these days, and there's so much focus around it that it is, it's never been addressed probably more than ever than the current times. And, people need help, and that is okay and all that. Like, I understand that. Like, me more than anyone, I'd say I understand that. Like, and I'm sure the listeners can relate to that. But I do think sometimes it can be used because it's not one of these things you can qualify like an injury. And I'm not saying that the kid doesn't have mental health issues, but I have big suspicions over Ryan Garcia. Number one, his attitude to the sport. I think Canelo and Reynoso camp were dropping hints. Blatant hints over into the media over the last couple of months, basically saying that Garcia doesn't train. Now, we mightn't feel like training if he's got shitty mental health, which is understandable as well. How do I say this? But I can't. Like, it's an awful fucking assumption to make if I'm wrong. But I just think that he has one foot in the sport. I think he's in love with being a TikToker more than he's being a fighter.
I believe the same.
Yeah, I think he's got too much fame, too much money, too early in his career, too much ass, which will fucking fuck a lot of things up. Fuck things up for a lot of fighters over the years.
Too much drama,
and
mate.
He's gonna move
with Oscar at the time when he got the new contract with Oscar. He was then going on about, it's not enough money. You say he's getting baby mamas. He's getting
all over the place. He's got fucking.
And he's gonna move to Texas where they have this fucking abortion ban and shit. Like, this motherfucker's gonna be Holyfield in it.
Because you don't have to pay any income tax, man. That's the reason he's saving it for fucking alimony payments.
There's something that I think. I look at all of them are doing stuff outside the ring. I'm not saying like fucking Tank Davis is an evangelist outside the ring. I'm just saying I think it's more obvious that Garcia is kind of. He's got too much money, too much fucking ass thrown at him, too much fame at an early age, and when the point has come where he's had to step up, he's disappeared into thin air. Plus, he's coming back looking extra muscular for a 135-pound fighter, by the way. Not saying he's not a big kid and all, but like, I don't know, like he's out of the sport, out of competition for 16 months, and he comes back looking like fucking Schwarzenegger. Like, I don't know. I've got just
his mental health is roid rage.
Yeah, like I've there's plenty of question marks and there's plenty of questions around Ryan Garcia, and the only way that they're going to be answered is when he fights. So he's back now. We give him a gimme. If the next opponent is like that or anywhere near around that level, the hardcore fans want to be asking some serious questions of Ryan Garcia, like, wouldn't they? Not that he gives a shit about that, because his real fans are hot ass Latinas, fucking. So he don't care. Like, but I think the boxer fans are going to turn on him if they keep on turning out opponents like that, because he's head and shoulders above that guy. Plus, he should stop that guy. By the way, I don't care how long he's been out. He had so many much more. He had so many more kind of advantages in the fight than Tago or whatever the fuck his name is, Tago. It was an opponent he really should be stopping.
Anything on the undercard, Matty?
Real quick, see, I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
I have two pieces of advice for these young fighters that have a lot of talent and
Not
they
betting
have
advice,
a lot
is it?
ahead of them. No, it's not betting advice, and we'll get to that in a second on the undercard. But I'll tell you what. Two things. One, you kids need to avoid social media. It takes away your focus on what you need to be doing, and people want so much of your time that way, and you get too much pussy thrown at you, plain and simply. And two, speaking of that, get a vasectomy. They can be reversed. You can have kids.
There is such a thing as too much, by the way. Just for youngsters out there, there's such a thing. It'll fall off you.
That's Matty. Just the old-fashioned way, wear a rubber.
Yeah, those can break though, and like dude, no, there was an end. It was either God, it might have been Drake. I was like, as an athlete, but it might have been Drake who he took off.
Drake.
He took off the condom and he put hot sauce in it, so the bitch couldn't pull the condom out and put his stuff back in her.
You know why? Because he read the fucking case like everybody else of the woman in America who was the maid, and the doctor had left a Johnny in the fucking trash, and she decided to fucking, do the turkey baster job, and then she successfully sued him for the paternity test, and the judge ruled in her favor. So Drake was like, "Give me this hot sauce now." No.
Cameron Lee says, "Is this where boxing's heading?"
Rob and I are trying to help.
Using rubbers.
Rubbers since they found a cure for AIDS that time. I don't think fucking that's going to be an issue, is it?
Not sure about the vasectomy advice, Matty. You might be in pain years later, so we're here.
I like the priest would tell you, on the point of ejaculation, we're draw. Is that right, Father? On the point of ejaculation, we're laying the weight. I fucking heard the horses can make my arse go in another direction, by the way.
Father David has said that. Yeah.
How am I going to lead us back to the undercard from this, Matty?
Be gay for your career, you're not going to knock up a dude. I mean, I'm sure they're working on it, but at this point, you're not going to be knocking up dudes. Just go with that.
Something tells me the withdrawal method's not going to work for you, because you never know when to get out. Come on, Steve.
Steve, Rob did mention the word AIDS there, so maybe jump on that ESPN card now.
No,
yes, exactly.
Real quick, so speaking of betting, you assholes, you assholes, I didn't even watch the fight because I heard it suck, but you assholes talked me out of Mosley Jr. winning against Gabe Rosado. Fuck y'all. Fuck y'all.
Who did? I picked you guys, Mosley, I'm sure I did.
No, I don't think you did. I said I'm like, man, it's Rosado. He could get cut. He could take it too easy. You guys, he's not going to lose to Mosley Jr. And here we are. I don't know. So, anyways, yes, that was apparently an awful fight. The Azat Hovhannisyan though on that undercard, Steve, he got a good stoppage on there. Came out like like gangbusters, closed the distance, wailed away. That fun little fight while it lasted. And there was a women's unification between God, I can't remember the other gal's name, but Marlon Esparza won. A decent enough fight. Basically Esparza's clean right hands against the work rate of the Japanese gal. Good enough fight, but overall shit card from DAZN. Got to give him at least one thumbs down on that one.
And what about that ESPN card? I didn't watch it on principle, but I believe you did.
I thought that Michaela Mayer looked really good against Jennifer Hahn. At 12 threes, 10 threes, she would have gotten a stoppage in that one for sure. So it'll be interesting where she's going to go from there. She's talking a unification with the God, I can't remember the fighter. I believe Japanese gal. And Alicia Baumgardner is no, that's who Alicia Baumgardner is going to be going for, I think. So, but it looks like the Top Rank and DAZN, it looks too complicated, and I don't think we're going to get to see Mayer against Baumgardner, and that's a shame because they actually like to both go in there and swing. So that could actually be a decent fight.
What do their husbands think about that?
I don't know about that one, man. I'll tell you what, Rob. I think it's sexist for people to be against women's boxing in a way because number one, if you think women are like too dainty to be like getting knocked out and shit like that, you're a sexist. And two, if you think that women don't deserve to get punched in the face as much as men deserve to get punched in the face, you're also a sexist. So that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But
no sexist on this show, dude. I know who you're addressing that to.
Oh no, I know.
No sexist here.
I know. We are definitely very progressive on this show. Leaders in rights for all people. So that is the Boxing Asylum in a Nuthouse, right? Also on that card, Giovanni Santillon. He just beat the shit out of Giovanni Esparza. Absolutely, just gave him a smoking, and it's just looking. This kid's moving up. It'll be interesting to see where he's going to go from here. Braz's a decent enough opponent. He has a fair bit of experience, obviously. We'll see where this is going from there. All in all, a fair card from ESPN. But I don't think they're going to be putting up their A stuff going up against another exceptional offering from Al Heyman. Praise be, Steve.
Praise be to Al Heyman. Love a bit of Al Heyman. He's putting up Spence Ugas next weekend, but we're not going to talk about that one first of all. We are going to go over to DAZN on Saturday evening. Alicia... Jimmy happy. Is Terry Harper still in orbit? I think she's been rewired. Bring her back down to earth. Bit of Alicia Baumgardner. She's on the undercard next weekend. Jordan Thompson, gigantic cruiserweight, is on as well. We've got Campbell Hatton. We've got Jack Cullen. We've got Chris Billum-Smith going in against Tommy McCarthy, part 2. But the main event here, Saturday the 16th of April, Manchester Arena, Andy. Christian Church is the matchmaker. Nobody cares about that, but I've read it out anyway. Conor Benn going in against Chris Van Heerden, WBA Continental welterweight title fight. Somebody said a couple of weeks ago, I don't know if I mentioned it on the pod, Van Heerden's on a decent run at the moment. He's coming off the back of a no contest against Jaron Ennis. So I suppose that's some kind of form to be coming into this one. What do you think about the opponent, Andy, and about Conor Benn's chances of getting a stoppage against Mr. Van Heerden?
So Mr. Van Heerden's having a bit of a rush shaker, to be honest with you. Yeah, look, I've not seen Van Heerden since the Boots fight. It only went one round. And I can't remember, last time I saw him after that. So I don't know what he's going to bring at this point, mate. Benn's been active as such. He's made incremental improvements, shall we say. The only slight that I've probably got really would be to see him step it up beyond Van Heerden's level. I don't even know if he's world ranked. I just want to see him in me better. I mean, if you're calling it, names like Khan or Brook or forget who else he's been calling it at this point. I mean, if you look at the top 10 at WBA, for example, you've got NS, Virgil Ortiz, Stanionis, Avanesi, I believe, bringing up the top 10 WBA, even though he's highly ranked with WBC. I don't know why you can't fight like these guys or Mario Barrios, but as I say, it goes back to the fact that Eddie's needing a star, he's needing to hype someone up, try to build someone. That said, though, I do expect Benn to have it all his own way in this fight, to be honest with you. I would be slightly surprised if it does go a distance because, again, I just don't know I've got no form guide for Van Heerden. I don't know what he's bringing at this point. He's bad for cuts, I believe. I think he can sometimes lead with the head. So there's that element. We might get an early night in that regard if any cuts come in. So, Benn might need to be slightly cautious as to how he tends to go to this fight. Like, no going to go in balls deep, shall we say. But I think Benn will probably stop him. probably mid to late rounds, possibly. One thing I did want to bring up though was about the Alicia Baumgardner fight. Actually, I seen something kicking about on Twitter. I think it was Ranger Rollins actually was bringing this up. Apparently, Eddie tried to get a hold of someone called is it Michaela Elam? I think she might be French. She got offered the fight on 1 week's notice. Rejected it, obviously. And now I see she's actually in with Lucas Matisse's sister,
who's 41 years old.
Yeah. So Lisa Baumgartner getting stepped up in class at the right time here. So I didn't want to hear anything about, or I see people saying like Eddie's putting on these great undercards and BT's wank and all that type of, which is probably true. Which is absolutely true. Actually, some of the BT
get a life,
get a life, mate. Even Ed. But at the same time as given Baumgartner, who's meant to be a world champion, an opponent on 7 days' notice,
who has to fly over an ocean
from Argentina, it's just completely shite, man. It's
might be indicating that the talent pool there in that division is not that thick.
It actually is. That like it's I don't have anything in front of me, but 130, 135, 126. That's kind of where there is a fair bit of talent. It's kind of if you look at how much talent's at 147 to 160 in men's, it's kind of the equivalent. That's just where the normal sized people are. So it's a particularly poor opponent. Just trying to load an undercard with someone who has a smidge of name recognition on short notice. Not impressed at all.
Are you impressed with the main event though, Matty? Benn against Van Heerden?
No. Especially considering what Benn thinks of himself and where he's going and the level of talent he says he can beat right now.
The thing is, right, we're going to see probably, we'll probably like bum him up when you actually get knocked out, but Ben's probably going to win big, and then we're going to get the angry comments after the fucking fight. I'll fight anyone, I'll fucking fight this guy, I'll fight Spence, fucking Ugas, Butayev, whoever it is, Crawford, and then ends up fighting probably like, I don't know, Robert Guerrero, or fucking, maybe even get
I've got a
like
perfect opponent for Conor Benn. Former, if he's seen as he's going to be fighting former Conor McGregor's sparring partners, why doesn't he bring Paulie out of retirement for one last go?
Fucking hell. Paulie's trying to fucking hide for fucking Colonel Bob there. That's what's happening with him. But you could see him like maybe fight like a Lewis Ritson, for example, or something along that ilk. Something below world level, but it's not going to be a kind of threat to him as such, because, well, I think they know. Well, you've heard the stories and that about possibly getting his jaw broke, and that's why he was away, for that length of time. You just don't know if he's maybe hiding something as well, I mean, his dad, obviously, I'm a big fan of his dad. Was one of my idols growing up. His dad had a bit of fragility about him. Obviously, suspect chin, gas could be a bit an issue in that as well. So maybe it's the same with young Conor.
What do you think about the level of opposition, Rob? We've gone from Sebastian Formella, not Sebastian Fundora, into Vargas, into Granados, into Algeria, into Van Heerden. Is this where boxing's heading?
Well, what you've got to understand, Steve, is this guy's just had a non-decision against Jaron Ennis. That doesn't count as a win, mate. That's, he's had a non-decision against Jaron Ennis. That is the level that Conor Benn is at.
Man, get yourself a life.
Get a life. That was me, Eddie Hearn. Evening, Ed. Look, I was one of the guys that was kind of on par with what they're doing, or on board with what they're doing with Conor Benn, because Eddie at the Zone, Evening Ed, is clinging on for a fucking UK pay-per-view star that can come along and fill Anthony Joshua's fill the void that Anthony Joshua's going to leave. I have to be careful way to phrase that. In the long term, and Benn is the only one on the roster that's carrying any star power, and to drive subscription numbers on that app, he's going to need Conor Benn undefeated and people tuning in to see him smashing and knocking fellas over and putting together nice little Instagram highlight reels and that. Plus he had to learn on the job, didn't he? He was a total fucking novice. A couple of years ago, he fought that kickboxer, didn't he? Payet, or fucking Gustavo Payet. He was playing for Chelsea.
I lost it.
Yeah, when he got the shit beaten out of him, he kind of, on national television, everybody's looking at him as a kind of a joke figure and that. But he's put himself in the argument. I'm not saying he's fucking world class, or I'm not saying he's going to be what's world champion these days. Could he get a version of a world title belt? Absolutely, and that's what they're navigating him towards. So I don't expect him to see Conor Benn in with anybody that can beat him until he gets to a title stage where he might have to take a mandatory like Hellbrook with Spence or something. But I think that, you know, they're looking for a version. I don't know where they're going to go with him, but, you know, you're not going to see him fucking... They're going to be putting him in with these guys that he can beat on home ground, look good doing it, and build his profile up until they get a hands on a world title. And that has to be the strategy for him. And, you know, a big domestic rivalry would be good for Benn, I think, at this stage. I don't know if it's ever going to be Avanesian, but I think he needs a dance partner to step out and become a fully fledged star. And until that happens, he won't be able to earn the right, I suppose, in the hardcore's minds as being...
I agree with that, actually, mate. You're right what you're saying there. Because he's not got anything domestically, really, to kind of like challenge him.
To push him, that's where his dad, they had that rivalry, British rivalry.
Watson, Collins.
I think the Brook fight would have been a great fight for him if they could have had that made, for loads of reasons. Like, would have been brilliant for him. But they're going the Eubank road or whatever. The Eubank fight, I suppose. You know, I think they're that starved of a domestic opponent for him, or a dance partner, or a rivalry for him, that they were talking of entertaining that fucking Eubank Junior fight at a catchweight. So, look, it'd be interesting to see where he goes. I'm nothing against Conor Benn. I think he's actually got an exciting style. I think he has loads of frailties that could be exposed, but that's kind of what makes him exciting as well. I think when he does get beaten, it's probably going to be in spectacular fashion, but I've nothing against him. I have to say he's exciting and I like watching him, but we're not going to learn anything about where Benn is at from fighting Chris Van Heerden on decision against Gerald Ennis. You know what I mean?
Well said, Rob. He's exciting, he's improved, but let's see what he does with Chris Van Heerden and where he goes after that point. A quick mention of a couple of cards next weekend. We're not going to go in depth into them, though, because we are starting to run on a bit. Gavin Gwynn, British title, Commonwealth title against Luke Willis next Friday evening, April the 15th in the York Hall. That should be a decent enough scrap. I think you can get that on YouTube or something. Jason Cunningham defending his European super bantamweight title against Terry Lequavier. That's some name, on Telford International Centre in Telford, Shropshire. Next Saturday evening, Andrew Kane is on the undercard. So is Nathan Heaney.
Wouldn't you get Eddie slumming it in there, though, mate, would you?
I've slummed it in Telford many times, Andrew.
Someplace.
Oh, it's someplace indeed. Anyway, moving on, Matty. Never mind Telford. It's all about wherever this fight's taking place. AT&T Stadium, Arlington, Texas. The big one from next weekend. I'll be waking up on Sunday morning, getting ready to get stuck into this one. We talked about the undercard last week. I'll just briefly go over the names, but not too much. Efe Apochi is on there. Vito Malnicki's going in against Tommy Carpensi's brother. Brandon Lee, exciting puncher, is in against Zachary Ochoa. Jose Valenzuela is in against the ageless Francisco Vargas. Yuriorkis Gamboa, nearly 40 years of age, is going in against Isaac Cruz. And Cody Crowley, undefeated, takes on Josecito Lopez. What about this one? Co-main event, is it? Chief support, rather. Mantis Stanionis, 13-0, going in against Rajab Butayev. Andy, this promises to be quite the fight. WBA World Welterweight title on the line. Is it a proper world title? No. Who cares? This is going to be a good fight, I think.
And it's part of our predictions this week.
Well, let Matty bring that in there, because I think Steve went to you first, mate. So if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, I tell you what, Steve, and what's interesting is this is not the chief support. From what I saw last night, they said on Showtime, this is
Cruz.
I don't know, but this is going to be Stanionis Butayev is going to be the
opener.
Is going to be on the Showtime portion of the card before the pay-per-view starts. So people will just be able to watch this who might not want to purchase the pay-per-view but have Showtime.
So if I can get the VPN working, I might watch it on YouTube, though.
Well, I'm pulling for you, buddy. Anyways, this is a really good fight. Stanionis, Steve, I was thinking about his jab, and honestly, I think it's one of the best welterweight jabs I've seen since Ike Corte. It's like a piston, man. It's an exceptional jab, and I just think that's going to command the fight for him. And I believe they'll set up some other stuff. I think it's a distance fight, but my hunch on this one is Stanionis and that wicked jab of his lead him to a points decision against Butayev, who has no contest on his record that was originally a loss. it's it's just roids are roids. Some shit is different than others.
So his opponent that got caught for roids, though, wasn't it?
Yep,
yeah,
it
best
was.
booting, the big cheating bastard.
So it's take it with a grain of salt, but I really think that it's going to take more than what Butayev has to beat that one great weapon that Stanionis has, which is that jab.
I'm going Stanionis as well, Andy, but I'm not sure by points or by stoppage. Butayev knows how to grind a fight out. Against Jamal James, he kept coming and coming, just beating him down until James couldn't take anymore. Stanionis will meet him head on. He's got a big bald head as well. There's going to be blood, I think, in this one. And the two of them are just going to stand centre ring and go at it. And I think that one of them's going to wear down, and that could well be Butayev. So I'm going to tentatively go with Stanionis by a late stoppage.
Right, I was going to go Stanionis by decision, actually. I agree with everything you just said. That's just how exactly I see the fight going out. These two guys are going to meet in the centre of the ring. Butayev, maybe not technically great, but what he does pretty well is he can pivot really well. He can throw body shots. He is very active, very maybe a swarmer type puncher, actually, to be honest with you. But Stanionis, a wee bit more skill set about him. Good jab, good combinations. I just don't know if his power's the same, to be honest with you, but again, as you say, it might come down to who wants it most. But at this point, because the way I see Butayev fight, he swings his shots. I can see Stanionis wanting to kind of back up a wee bit, maybe pop a jab. I'm going to go Stanionis on points. Yeah, definitely on points. I'm really looking forward to this. I'm actually looking forward to this fight more than the actual main event, believe it or not.
I agree 100%.
Big on Stanionis, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the only thing I have really going back and forward, Andy, is whether he'll stop him or not. I don't think he's a terribly better fighter than Butayev, like they're miles apart, but I just think that it will come to a slugfest and they're going to stand there and go toe-to-toe. And I just think Stanionis might get the better of it, but points, as you said, maybe might be the better option because he did go to points with Delorme and quite close on a couple of the cards as well early last year. So, but I think it's going to be a slugfest. Neither of them are going to back down. I do expect there to be blood, definitely.
Definitely, mate. I agree with you. As I say, Stanionis, he was a good amateur, I believe. I forget where I think he might have.
Did he fight in the Olympics for Latvia? Was it 16 or
Lithuania? Aye, something like that. I think. Aye.
Yeah.
I think he fought Gazak. Is it Gazov? The one of the Uzbeks, I believe.
I can't remember.
He was one of those kids that came through running about with the Uzbeks. But both putting undefeated titles on the line here as well. I forget who's the belt holder here. Actually, who is it?
Stanionis, I'm pretty sure.
Stanionis.
Yeah.
And I seem I don't recall this is some sort of kind of tournament fight as well. Let's not see who gets the winner of the Spence fight. I forget who.
I think it might be like the WBA like finally clearing out their bullshit or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Because other lot's got a WBA title on the line there, the Ugas Spence fight. But Stanionis, I say remember as well, Stanionis, I think his last fight got done on no contest.
Yeah, that was Colazo. Was it head clash? I think it ended up.
Head clash, I think. So you just wonder as well, is these two maybe kind of coming in close quarters? Maybe a head clash, maybe it might happen. Hopefully not. I might get a bad injury, but we don't want any of that. Again, I just think it comes down to who wants it more and who could take more, actually. Because I would definitely pay attention to Butayev's body shots. If Stanionis can take those. Probably Stanionis has probably got the better opposition on his resume. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head who Butayev is maybe thought is maybe better. I don't think he has, to be honest with you. Maybe Jamal James is probably his best opponent he's faced to date. Stanionis has got, you usually say, Colazo, Delorme, who's maybe seen better days. But
Butayev's Russian as well. He's slipped in under the radar while Bivol takes all the heat.
People keep keeping the QT as well, But he's been based in America for a fair bit now, I believe. Mr. No Mercy. So he's a handful. He's definitely a handful, Butayev, to be honest with you. As I say, he's not technically great, but he can pivot pretty well. He can wing his shots, loves to hit the body. He'll come over the top in that as well. So unless Stanionis maybe kind of slips up, maybe gets caught with chin in the air, it could be a good night for him. But as I say, these two guys are probably at their peak as well. So there's no excuses really, to be honest with you. This should be fight of the night, or hopefully fight of the card, basically.
Rob, I know you're all over this one. Lithuania versus Russia, Eastern Bloc Rock. Mantis Stanionis against Rajab Butayev. Who you got, Rob? By what method?
Fuck off it is. This is the prediction league, is it?
I think the white guy is going to win, Steve.
I'm going to go with the Lithuanian lad because play against a couple of them in Astro hard characters. So I'm going to go with the Lithuanian, my Lithuanian brothers on this one. One of them's name is Elvis.
He does have a Greek name.
Fucking hell.
He does have a Greek name.
Yeah, so, but yeah, so Stanionis, I go for Stanionis. Because his jab is fucking like a prime Ike Quartet, primarily. That's why I'm going for him.
Fuck off. Stop your points there, Rob.
Yeah, I think he's going to do it inside the distance.
All right.
There we are. Ike Quartet jabs and Elvis, the Lithuanian, getting thrown in here on this Sunday evening. Let's get on to the main event.
I thought he was Irish the first time I played against him. I thought it was one of those farmers' nicknames. Everyone was like, "Hey, Elvis, give me the ball." Then I kicked him. He went over. He's like, "Ah!" He's like, "So where the fuck is this fella from?"
Oh dear. On to the main event. Unfortunately, Andy, we can't get to Errol Spence against Terence Crawford just yet, but this is a decent second place one for me. We expected Manny Pacquiao to be in this place, but Dennis Ugas stepped in at short notice last year and laid a bit of a beating on the Pac-Man, sent him into retirement. So here he is, going in against another southpaw. He has a good record against southpaws, likes the right hand. He has Ismail Salas in the corner, underrated, top-quality Cuban coach. Are you sniffing an upset here, Andy, Ugas against Spence?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, mate. I must admit, I've been watching some of the build-up to this fight, including the Showtime documentaries, and yeah, I'm kind of feeling possible an upset here, even though I'm not going to pick it, because I don't see, if it's a close fight, Spence getting Spence not getting a decision, basically. Ugas, obviously, he's a good fighter. Obviously, he is. He can mix it up. He can vary. He can let his hands go. He can keep it at a distance if he wants to. We've seen Spence get tagged. The Garcia was his last fight. I remember seeing him getting caught with a few shots. You often wonder as well, I know it's like old news and a day behind, but it's just like, is this car accident really going to catch up with him at some point? He's talking about PTSD issues off the car accident. He said apparently a couple of car wrecks or a car wreck after it. I think Rob maybe picked up on that one. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong there, mate.
No, he did, yeah.
Every time he watches Back to the Future, he freaks out.
Well, someone take the fucking keys off him, man. Anyone around, you know what I mean? Hide the keys around the house or something. Don't just let him go out in the car if he's in that state.
Yeah, he's obviously got his kids close to him now these days. He's even got them in the gym and he's working out. So clearly, the guy's had a massive wake-up call, to be honest with you. But I still think he's going to have enough about him. I mean, look, I was surprised as to how good he was. I know Danny Garcia, but at the end of the day, but Spence, I thought, looked pretty good after what he'd been through operational wise, having to get his teeth and his jaw fixed up, and he's coming out of a fucking roof of a sports car at 150 mile an hour and living to tell the tale. It's nothing short of miraculous, to be honest with you. So fair play to the guy. But at the same time, as he's fighting, I don't know about terms of size and reach, but Ugas is a big guy for the weight. Maybe slightly old for the weight as well, but he's kind of hit the right point here. If he puts it all together, I could definitely see him pulling off an upset, but I think Spence probably has got enough about him. I say probably because I'm still convinced that there's going to be a hangover for what happened to him. That's going to catch up at some point. He's drain his ass at previous fights trying to make weight. I remember having to make. I remember posting on Twitter actually having to dump 30 pounds 6 weeks from a fight. So hopefully he's got his weight under control. Maybe this whole situation has got his mind refocused. I don't know, but I just think after what he's been through, mentally, physically, that takes a toll on you at some point. And you just wonder, is next week going to be the week that he's going to catch up with him? I don't know. But that said, I still think if it's a close fight, Spence gets a decision. But Ugas, certainly a live dog. He's got all the tricks. He knows how to fight. He can hit your body. He can mix it up. He can fake you to the body, hit you up top. So if Spence is not on it, he could come a cropper. But I still think he's got enough about him at this point still to pull it off. So I'll say Spence on points.
Yeah, Des says Ugas was all wrong for Pac. However, I think Spence will be far too cute and measured for Ugas. Ugas will struggle to get into a rhythm and end up going into a shell. Spence, unanimous decision. That's my pick as well, Matty. I think Spence will win by unanimous decision. It won't be plain sailing, but I think he'll just be that one step ahead. Ugas, we've seen him lose in the past, albeit down at the lower weight. Since he moved up to welterweight, he's been on a great run. And the Porter fight notwithstanding, which I actually thought he did enough to at least get a draw in. He's on good form. He's a big old unit. but it's Spence for me, I think, Matty. The only thing I will throw in here, Andy mentioned it as well, I have it in my notes here, the car crash, it still looms large for me. We saw him fight Garcia after a long layoff. He's had another long layoff since then. He's had the eye injury as well that kept him out of that Pacquiao fight. Do we have a definitive answer yet on Spence's overall conditioning?
I think we do. You have to consider he's done okay since the car accident. I really think he's all right. I think his physical conditioning's fine. I think the more interesting thing is sometimes you have to look at who the opponent prior was, and for me, you have to more look at Ugas and the Pacquiao that he fought, which was not the same Manny Pacquiao that we've seen in the past. The legs weren't there. Totally different story in the way that he was able to move from Thurman until that fight with Ugas. Ugas was able to do a lot in that fight with his jab against the southpaw, so I think we have to concede that he has that skill. But I just do think that Spence is physically bigger. He's the better puncher. He has more variety to his shots, and that victory that Ugas has over Pacquiao, great. It's on his resume that he beat Manny Pacquiao. Very few people have been able to say that, especially later in Pacquiao's career. So he'll always have that, but I don't think it's as big of a victory as people think. And the odds of him pulling off an upset like this 2 times in a row, definitely slim and none. But to separate myself from the pack, try to make a little bit of a difference point, I'm going to go with Spence by stoppage.
Ooh, Spence by stoppage. Raise us on that one, Roberto. Big A says Spence was driving the car that nearly took you out last week.
If he'd have been driving it, none of us would be here, I don't think.
Oh, Spence would have survived though, mate. They'll end up in the fucking field with the sheep.
Yeah, with the sheeple. Where the fuck was I? Spence. I think Spence is going to show the world how good he is against Ugas. I think you're right, Steve. There's loads of questions that need to be answered on where he is physically post the crash and post the PTSD and the eye operation. I think that's fair. Danny Garcia, I don't know was ever going to test him or bring him to dark places, but I think Ugas can. He's a big awkward unit, as you said. He's long. There's a couple of young fellas looking at me like I'm mad on the street and talking box in the middle of the night.
Get him on, Rob. They make a prediction for you
here. Yeah. So fucking no. I think he's big, long, awkward, Cuban style. He can cause difficulty for Spence, but I think even in the Sean Porter fight, you're giving Ugas a shout of winning it. But Porter, although he gave Spence a very close fight when it counted, Spence was able to show his class. And I think he'd do that again. Spence fans and fucking Bud Crawford fans annoy the shit out of me, by the way. They're both rooting for the other one to lose.
Oh, mate, it's like Floyd
it's
Manny
ridiculous,
fan,
dude.
It's weird as anything, man.
It's so fucking weird. There's a portion of the black support in America who view Crawford as a kind of a race trader for going with Arum and not signing with Al, and kind of saying he deserves what he gets and all. And they're kind of rooting for him to lose. And I'm like, will all you just root for the two of these fellas to win their fights until they actually fight each other, and fucking rally for the fight instead of fucking championing one and championing the other? Let's see the two of them. They're both brilliant welterweights. They've both shown so much good stuff. Right, one resume doesn't stack up one's, but let their fucking if they both fight each other, their resume is going to fucking speak for itself when the dust is settled. So let's try and get the fight made instead of fucking going down the Floyd Manny route with this one, because it's already fucking 2 or 3 years past its sell-by date. So let's see it.
It's past its sale-by date. Have you got all the information you need there, Matty? Stanionis, Butayev, and Spence Ugas were the 2 picks for this week, yeah?
Yeah, Rob.
I'm going Spence. I think Spence can stop him, but I think it's going to be Spence's decision.
Can you recap, Matty, last week's results for us?
Yeah, we all picked Golovkin by stoppage, so we're awesome on that account. And then everybody picked Lubin except for Rob, which puts Rob in the lead with 22 points to Andy's 21, Steve's 20, and Oz and mine's 17.
What about my goal difference, though? It's a big factor as well.
took half it back just about today, mate.
In your own time, Andy.
Yeah, exactly, mate. You just calmed down
Right.
So just looking at it, all of our betters.
I take it. We've all went. Your low one's been different for next week. You went by the stoppage, yeah. So everybody else is pretty much the same.
It'd be a statement if he stops him. I think I'd be surprised.
It would be.
Yeah. Well, you've got to try to catch up somehow. But hey, if anybody that's betting, if the panel was unanimous this week as far as Spence winning and Stanionis winning. A two-leg parlay. Two-leg parlay. That's it. Just 2 legs. Maybe that's your play this week. I haven't seen the odds on Stanionis Butayev yet. It could be close.
There we are. Could be close. I know Matty has to leave us soon, so thank you to him if indeed he does disappear. Before we go on to Belly of the Week, so episode 469, we've got a question in and a bit of a discussion, which will fit in nicely with Belly of the Week. But first of all, friend of the pod, Des, who's hanging around in the chat, shout out to Des, has sent in a question for us. Andy, I'll read this one out and you can let me know what you think. Des says, when box office events were introduced to the UK market, it was because of exceptional circumstances. We had Bruno, Lewis and Naz, who were huge stars with crossover appeal who transcended the sport. They were fighting for world titles against the best guys in the division. These cards were standalone main event attractions. Over the last 10 years, the product has been watered down. No disrespect, but the level has dropped, and Bellew, Clev, Brooke, Gavin, White, Rivas, and we could go on, are all pitched as box office events. Because of this considerable drop, pay-per-view cards have had to be stacked. They wouldn't sell otherwise. The last 10 years have seen promoters merge 2 or 3 ordinary fight night cards together and sell it as a pay-per-view event. Does Fury White need an undercard of substance, Andy? Do huge main events need propping up? I'd argue this one is old school and it's all about the main event. Side note, can anyone remember who was on the undercard of Pedroza McGuigan, Ben Eubank, Lewis Tyson, Wilder, Fury 3? Overall point there from Des, I think it's pretty fair there.
It's a fair point, mate. As I say, I see the usual kiss-ass core on the Twitter chat. They know who they are and that, talking about fucking undercard, Frank, loving shite. Look, do you really want to talk about shite? Should we pull up the Anthony Joshua Alexander Usyk undercard back when they got fucking schooled? You had Lawrence Okolie fight Dylan Prazoc. You had Maxime Prodan fight Florian Marcoux. Callum Smith fight Lenny Castillo, who almost fucking killed the guy. And Campbell Hatton going 6 rounds with Sonny Martinez. Is that any worse or any better than what Frank's putting on for this? Of course it isn't. But at the same time, it's all about the main event. And we've said it before. We've said it hundreds of times. If you can give us a pay-per-view event that had maybe, say, 3 fights on it that have absolute quality, people will go over it. But you've got a fight here that's costing 40 million quid or $40 million, I forget what. What the fuck did they expect?
This one actually hit the mainstream this week because they covered it on TalkSport. Simon Jordan and Jim White, and I think they were having Frank on the phone, and they were just laying the business on the table. That obviously the fucking money's going to the 2 fucking fighters in this situation. You get what you get, and nobody tuning in, and nobody that bought the 94,000, or a very small portion of them, and that's the reality, have bought the tickets or put their hand in their pocket to buy the fight based on the undercard. It's just a fucking reality. They're casuals, 94,000 people, unbelievable. So they don't give a fuck about the undercard, man. They're all going to be pissed up and fucking singing Sweet Caroline and whatnot. They don't care. Do you know what I mean? But I actually saw a brilliant tweet on Twitter this week about DAZN, where a fella said, with Canelo fighting on pay-per-view, Andrade gone, Haney gone, Garcia better do the business or else I'm out of here. I'm not going to be paying a subscription to watch.
You're a hater.
Callum's fighting Davids.
Just out of interest, right? Just off the guy's question, and he says, "Does anybody remember the Pedroza McGuigan undercard?" Well, I don't, because I was 5-year-old at the time. But I
remember seeing it.
I pulled it up, and here's undercard. Davy Boy McCauley fought Bobby McDermott for a British title eliminator. Harry Co-op fought Stuart Robinson. Never heard of both of them. Simon Eubank fought Gary Muir. Dave Hegarty versus David John Irving, and Danny Lee versus Roy Webb. Yeah. Who gives a fuck about the undercard? It's all about the main event at the end of the day. As I say, if it's costing the gut end of 40 million quid or $40 million, whatever it is, what do you expect? What do you expect? And Eddie Hearn, man, they use him as a barometer for fucking some of the shit he's put on his undercard in the past, as you mentioned, the cleverly fucking Belgian 2 undercard.
But you have to be realistic. There's fucking in the Premier League, there's 3 fucking broadcasters who have it or whatever. Normally it's a monopoly. It used to be a monopoly for Sky. Nobody has the monopoly on boxing. There's fucking 4 or 5 different networks, 5 or 6 different promoters. They're all fucking pulling for their. So that's where you got thin undercards, number one. And then number two, when you're spending 40 milli on the fucking main event, the boys got to get their share. You know what I mean? Everybody has to get paid. Shut the fuck up. What do you want?
Exactly, mate.
Get a life.
I can actually remember one of the fights that was on the Pacquiao De La Hoya undercard off the top of my head. It was the first fight between Juanma Lopez and Daniel Ponce de Leon.
I remember Matty staying up for the the back end of Tyson's career fights, like against Danny Williams and Clifford Etienne, and those undercards are some of the worst you've ever seen. You had like Holly, was it Christy Martin, and all these one? Oh my god!
Yeah, they
Trash Central.
Biggest fight of all time. Undercard was stinking. The Floyd Manny undercard was stinking. Remember that?
Wasn't it Lomachenko against someone that sucked?
Lomachenko undercards have been pretty poor, but it's the same with Floyd's undercards, like Jesse Vargas fucking propping up the main the co-main event, so to speak, for the best part of fucking 3 or 4 years. Got the distance each time. You just knew that Floyd was coming to go the distance as well over 12 rounds. You're like, fucking hell, man. But as I says, look, if you've got an event that's going to cost 40 million, then it doesn't need an undercard. Give me a couple of good 2 or 3
Tell you who were
quality
brilliant
fights,
at it, by
that's
the way.
enough.
Golden Boy. On big nights, Golden Boy always came through with a good card.
Golden Boy's
Fantastic
cards were class.
Yeah, that's until Tricky Dicker came along here and fucked him over, basically.
HBO Golden Boy cards on a big fight night were always stacked. Always. Someone's going to prove me wrong now in the film. We'll get a life.
No, but I think it's right. Look what they did with Amir Khan. You know, they brought him along gradually and then they can put him straight in the deep end. Look at Marcus Maidana after the Ketelnik fight, after the Pauly fight.
Yeah, they know what fights look good on paper. You know, I mean, there's some cheap fighters that'll give you a damn good night's work. And we know what a fun fight is when we see it, whether it matters or not. And I think that's what they could do for us. I mean, okay, so you don't want to pay for a big undercard. At least give us some of these guys that you can pick up for $20,000 to come and fight that give a fucking hell of a good fight and put them there. So at least the people are entertained before the main event. You know, at least entertain us.
Yeah, you're right there, Matty. See, I would say to Matty's point, actually, if you've got a main event that's costing 40 odd million, right? Is if you're going to pay washers for the undercard, then you would need to go like the lower weight divisions, because to get a good competitive fight or a world title fight, you need to go down to the lower class weights, because you're going to get like 50, 60,000 pound or dollars, whatever it is, to put on a decent scrap, because these guys are cheaper compared to the heavyweight title, because it's the biggest title in sports. You need to remember as well, it's the biggest title in the world, the heavyweight title. He is the man. This is the big fight. Isn't it anti Joshua or Usyk? Tyson Fury is the man, and that is it. So if it's 40 million, I don't care. The undercard is poor. We accept that. But at the end of the day, it's all about the main event. That's all it's about. And then once we get this out the road, we get Joshua Usyk out the road, we might then get what we want to see, the undisputed title. I'm sceptical, but hopefully.
It is all about. It is. I was going to say, Matty, it is all about the main event, and I think that's the spirit of Dez's point as well. Originally, pay-per-view was all about, you have to get the best fighters together, and if it takes the extra money, that pay-per-view, to make that happen, then that's what we have it for, and it was all about the main event. And I think over the years, it's been watered down to kind of back up the fact that, the main event maybe not that great, but we're putting on a quality undercard, it's stacked, this word stacked, to justify the fact you put it on pay-per-view as taking it away from the fact that it's been all about the main event, a weaker main event like a White Rivas, as Des mentioned, or didn't Frank put one on? It was like the Magnificent Seven. That's the case.
It started off great, that
all
card,
these
actually.
7 fights, didn't you? And it wasn't about just one fight, and that's where they've watered down pay-per-view. I think that's maybe the spirit of what Des is saying.
That Magnificent Seven card was going to be great until it started falling apart. The premise of it was really good, but it just didn't materialise fully.
But that was a collective, wasn't it, as well? Yeah. It wasn't just one fight. It was based on the fact that there was all these different fights. And that's where this quote-unquote stacked undercard has come from in pay-per-views, when realistically, it's all about the main event, as which White Fury is.
Well, and you have to, think of it like, and we went through a period where there weren't very many pay-per-views whatsoever. We were kind of blessed, that last 5 years or so, it's been kind of good. Just a couple, 2, 3 a year. But it's getting worse again, and it's you think here in the States right now, over the next 6 weeks, 7, I'm going to have to pay for Spence versus Ugas. I'm going to have to pay for Fury versus White.
Team stream.
I'm
There's
going
always
to
a
have
choice,
to.
Matthew.
I'm going to have to pay for Canelo versus Bivol, and I'm going to have to pay for Davis versus Romero. That's getting a little heavy.
What does that tell you?
How much is that costing you then, all in?
You need to get onto the stream scene.
That's like $300. Like, where
hell,
are the
man.
super chats? Help me out here.
Hey, Matty, I've actually got, you can't see it, but I've actually got an L put to my forehead just now, aimed at you.
Yeah.
Loser.
Get yourself a fire
you-
stick, baby. Would you?
Come on,
What's the
Yeah,
fuck,
it,
man?
you know, it
What's
just
the sake?
it is what it is, man. It's I have capitalist morals, so and it's a product, so it is what it is. But I think they're definitely pushing to a certain point, and there might come a time where I'm just like, well, I just won't get one or the other or something like that. Period. And I'll check YouTube after each fight ends, because there's always something up there for about an hour, right? So you do what you got to do in that point in time, but they're pushing the boundaries at this point in time. If they're going to keep asking for us to pay for a product roughly monthly, this is a little odd in this period, but let's say roughly monthly, if it's going to be that often, there needs to be quite a lot provided on that product, more than just the main event.
Well, it's like Eddie Hearn says, isn't it? I mean, excuse my language, but fuck pay-per-view. He's right at the end of the day.
Yeah, Eddie nailed one.
Was dead, mate.
You got to be on the
Eddie
zone,
nailed
though,
that
to
one.
get big fights, apparently. Even Ed.
No fights for you.
There's no fights for you, baby. Even
Yeah,
Ed.
It's frustrating, but we'll see how it shapes out. It's a really tight period in here, and it's really odd to have a UK fight on pay-per-view in the afternoon in the States. That is a really strange occurrence. So that one, just kind of throw that as a black swan there.
Shout out to Des, who has succinctly teed up my point onto his point, back onto his point. He says huge fights have never had undercards. This is a new
Bullshit.
trend.
Floyd Canelo had.
I think that's Thread saying
Who's
the
on that?
main event is not pay-per-view worthy.
Floyd-
And I
Floyd
don't think
Can-
he's talking about this fight specifically. But
No.
fuck me.
Floyd Canelo had fucking Garcia Matisse on there, and
I
that
think
was
he's talking about the transition of pay-per-view. Here we go again. He says, what Eddie started doing was merging 2 to 3 fight nights and calling it a pay-per-view event. That's what I was saying as well. Failure to make big fights and build stars. This event is a standalone main event card. There you go, Matty.
That Cleverly Bellew 2 undercard was absolute fucking dog shit, man.
Oh, yeah.
I'll never forget that. I came on, we did a post-fight pod for that, and I was sleeping, almost sleeping.
Dude,
Fucking horrendous, man.
Didn't Bellew have a fight with Isaac Chilemba that was one of the shittiest fucking fights in the history of mankind?
He had 2, didn't he? Didn't he
two
fight
of them.
Chilemba twice?
The second fight, because he got dropped twice off Chilemba, remember, and I think there was no draw. And the fucking second
Let's see who
fight,
beats him.
I ain't taking punches, mate. I'm going to be on the back foot all fucking night. That's what he fucking did. Bored the pants off us, by the way. Right.
It always comes back to Tony, especially for Bellew of the
Anthony.
week.
Anthony.
Episode 469. Andy's with us. Rob's here. Matty's here at the moment. He might disappear shortly, but we'll enjoy him as long as we have him. Talking to Tony, why not let him lead us into this Bellew of the week?
Ooh.
I've told you what to do, ban them for life. My thing would be, fail the steroids, officially you've took steroids, you've injected needles, ban them for life. Ban them for life. No ifs or buts, you fail for performance enhancing drugs, you're banned for life.
It seems to be people saying to you, and this is also towards Eddie Hearn as well, that it seems to be one rule for one and one rule for another.
If anybody fails a drug test for performance enhancing drugs, they've been injecting steroids, ban them for life. I don't care who it is. I don't want to go on about Billy Joe. I just feel for him. I know the kind of person Billy Joe is. He's a good lad. He's one of the boys. And let me tell you, mate, cheating just wouldn't be in his... It's just wrong, mate. He's been given something, and it's wrong. It's wrong. And he must be furious as well. He must be furious because you're tarnishing the lad's name, and it's just not in. It's just not in.
Tony should suck a dick for that. There you go. Fuck Tony Bellew then.
Oh, Tony. Sorry,
Oh,
Anthony. Tony died. I forgot about that. Even Anthony, in their own time.
Get a ban for life, mate.
Yeah. I wonder how the gear's going to be at the clubs these days, you know?
Where's the cars back?
Here's Errol. Reversing over Rob. That was Boxing Squared, by the way. I put that together. Shout out to him, her, they, them, listener. He put that in for us a while ago, and it's always a fan favourite. Much like this one, Eddie's back in action as well. Eddie Hearn wants Ryan Garcia to fight Maxi Hughes in the UK next. We're talking a stadium fight or something, apparently.
Oh, fuck. Aye, where was it? Oh, where's Maxi from again?
Huddersfield or something, I don't know.
Well, it's not Huddersfield Town, is it?
No, not sure.
Fucking hell. I mean, Ryan Garcia fucking probably... That is the man, I'm going to say it.
Ryan Garcia and Huddersfield, Andy. Think you've seen it all?
Oh, can you imagine them trying to fucking hump the slags in fucking Huddersfield? Jesus Christ, man, imagine the baby mamas. Fuck. Fucking didn't feed their bairns fucking Rivitas on fucking Revels and all that type of shit. Fucking been in there, he's been to Huddersfield.
It might be a slight culture shock for him. He's used to trading in different territory, maybe.
He's probably used to birds drinking like cocktails, whereas he goes to Huddersfield, he sees the Bints fucking drinking pints of lager, you know. Pints of Stella, wife beater or man beater, or so I end up calling it, you know.
Joe Goosen having a pint with him in a pub
with denim on
at the Alfred McAlpine Stadium. I don't know if it's called that now, but it was back in the day when I visited.
Alfred McAlpine.
Joe Goosen come there and everyone's wearing denim already.
What tracksuits? Everyone's so healthy around here.
Shell suits, sorry. Shell suits is the call.
Shell suits are on the way back, Andy. Saw someone wear one the other day.
I see the Mafia's back wearing them again, actually. They cunts.
Oh, good old Ryan. We have more from this fella coming up later, but here's a little sneak peek. Shout out to Sam in the patreon.com/boxing asylum who created this. Fresh off the back of Holt last week, there's some creativity going on there in the Nutters group, Andy.
What's he got the British flag up there for? What the fuck's all that about?
On that film or whatever it is.
Is he expecting another imperial invasion somewhere?
It's legacy of lies. It's not 55 titles. That's what it means.
I'm telling you, that's Ringwalk John's brother, by the way. I'm telling you right now. He's probably had cancer that he didn't fucking tell us it had yet.
It looks like a fucking 50 Cent mixtape cover from the early 2000s. What the fuck is going on here, man?
The boys working overtime. More on Diamante to come later. Back to King Roy, DAZN. After 15 months out, Ryan Garcia is back. Don't miss the highly anticipated return. The most anticipated returns in boxing, George Foreman, coming back after 10 years. Eventually knocked out Michael Moore, Vinny Paz as well. Muhammad Ali's return. Mike Tyson coming out of prison, back in the ring. And then Ryan himself, after 15 months, due to health and wellness, he was back against Emmanuel Tego and one of the most anticipated returns in boxing.
I love this, by the way. So, Foreman's retired. You've got Mike Tyson in prison for rape. You've got Muhammad Ali denied a boxing license. And then you've got fucking Vinny Paz coming off a car crash, absolutely obliterated spinally, Mike Tyson-wise. Fucking then you've got Ryan Garcia, who's getting baby mamas up a tree, and fucking he's got a mental health problem. Now, I'm not going to make light of the mental health problem, obviously, in that. But at the end of the day, if you go about fucking about in life, then mental health is going to catch up with you because you wonder, why me all the time? So,
crying Ryan.
Crying Garcia, as I call him these days. So, fucking, yeah, look, it wasn't the most anticipated ring returns because you know why? Because your man who's talking here didn't even fucking watch it. So that says its own story.
Yeah, I'll shout out to Ryan and his comeback. Mick Shenzi says Prime Gad is honing in now. He's got a new target. Michaela Mayer talks about studying footage in preparation for her next fight. No doubt the guard was studying a bit of footage himself. I think I've got more of a pro style, she says. He's off the Ebony train and he's on with Michaela Mayer. So shout out to the guard. He's turning his sights elsewhere. That's good for him there. Looks like he's having a good time anyway. Jay.
Having a little parlay.
Little parlay. Jay says, stay to this tweet. Please enroll this into the top 10 all-time belly of the weeks from Johnny G. Murata looks a little too happy after this L. The fight looks fixed, if you ask me. Good solid belly of the week. Not sure about top 10 of all time, though.
I heard about this one, right? And to be honest with you, I actually seen even worse when I seen somebody's tweet about it's un-Japanese to throw the towel on. I was like, what? So apparently it's like because Japanese just send their guys out to like fucking samurai warriors basically just fucking fight to the death. Right? It's unbecoming of the Japanese to throw the fucking towel on. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Don't think they all have to live up to that standard, do they, surely?
Fucking hell, man. Jesus Christ. What the fuck is it? Fucking Emperor Hirohito we've got here, man. Is it some sort of god this fucking fight? What the fuck?
Murata, you have shamed us.
Fucking hell. Couldn't believe it. I was reading this. Like some of these guys come out with these hot takes. It's just outrageous, man. You imagine it? It's on Japanese to throw the fucking towel and well, they threw the towel in a 45 when the fucking 2 nuke bombs landed, didn't they? Jesus Christ!
Poor old Murata. No sympathy. Eddie Hearn is giving himself a pat on the back for making Taylor Serrano, New York City, Canelo, Bivol in the T-Mobile, back-to-back April 30th, May the 7th, truly blessed even. Rob's Boxing Shrew says, I'll never criticise your undercards ever again, and I apologise for doing so.
Oh, fuck off. I haven't even seen the undercard for that fight. Who's on it again?
I have no idea.
Give me a second, I'll pull it up.
And better apologise, Andy, if it's not up to scratch. Ron Jones nominated him anyway.
Katie Taylor, here we are. Box rec. And we have Jesse Vargas against Liam Smith, Austin Williams against Chordell Booker, Franchon Cruz Derzon against Ellen Cedros, it's a women's unification. In fact, it's 4-belt unification actually. Galal Yafai's having his second pro fight. Yeah, it's stacked card, mate. It's got me fucking creaming over this shit.
Apology incoming from you, Andrew.
Oh, what, mate? Sorry.
Apology
Can't
incoming.
wait. Can't wait
to get a life if you're not looking forward to that one. Sky Nicholson, London Knights, puts up a photo. John Collias jumps in. Warrior in the ring, femme fatale by night. you and Evans.
Thirsty, baby, thirsty.
You always get these accounts though, don't you? These boys, and they put like the rudest of shit under these women's accounts. Then you go onto their bio, and it's like always treat women with respect.
You know what I love about Danny Robson's account is you see when he tweets like this, he actually goes into the profile picture and gets an enhanced picture of the actual profile. It's sort of guy in their 50s who's not had a shag in about 20 years. You know, or he's like fucking five knuckle duster and he's fucking cocked every night because he can't get any, you know. Sorry. Basically, boxroom virgins is the idea calls them, you know.
he thought it was just us. Here's another one. Nicola Hurricane Hopewell, remember the name, # Team Hurricane. Just walking for 5 minutes after my 8K run. Stacey Smith jumped in.
Oh, fuck.
He says, get this woman on an undercard, Eddie. Give her a shot and you'll have yet another world champion on your books. Why Eddie Hearn, says Richie. And Stacey says, because out of the promoters currently, nobody is pushing women's boxing harder. None have the same connections or ability to make international fights of the same standard as Matchroom. Boxer is the other route, but not as well connected. Certainly not at the lower weights.
Don't you dare talk about Boxer like that. And Ben Shalom.
Ben Shalom, man.
It's connected everywhere, man.
He's a caring man. Look at him.
How the fuck does this fella know what other promoters' connections are? Like, no. Frank Warren has no road to Shelley Finkel. I know these things.
He's not got Rolodex. He's not got Rolodex to get some phone numbers to phone somebody to try and get a connection to put me in touch with someone else, for example. You know, it can't happen. Possibly can't happen.
Fuck's sake, get a life.
This is a favourite of Aussies, isn't it? This Stacey Smith. He's honed in on him before, I think.
He fucking hates that person. He's a bloke as well. He fucking hates him. He's like, this cunt. He fucking hates him.
He's no Stacey Keats, put it that way.
An absolute disgrace. BTR Boxing Podcast Network. This is a network, no less. This fish and chip shop in the UK has nailed it with their dedication to Tyson Fury, the Chipsy King.
Fucking hell, man. I think what happened is, from what I heard, true story, I think they ran out of peas that day, so just put an S instead.
Rage, I didn't bring the Chipsy King to Wexford, man. That would have been amazing. Fuck it. Ball drop there. Fuck's sake. The Chipsy King.
Well, here, Andy, I was just checking out where it is actually, and it says the phone number on the top is 014 1,463, I think that is. Let's have a look here.
I thought it'd been 999, mate. Only
1,463 is Ross, Inverness and Ross.
Inverness?
That's what it says.
It'll be 4 hours for me, mate, so fuck it. I think it gets to me, it'll be called anyway.
I thought, remember that reminded me. Remember the time Ozzy fucking read out Father Dave's number on the air? Sorry, got a contact number for Father Dave. Actually, if you want to get him at the fucking vicarage, it's fucking. Oh man.
He's probably blessed the wine just now, though. That's no problem.
Yeah,
the blood of Christ. The blood of Christ.
Iron Fisted Champion says Furiosity to wash it all down with. Indeed.
Jesus. What more could you ask for on a Saturday in Inverness other than play the chips from the Gypsy King and the Furiosity to wash it down? For fuck's sake.
Sounds like Isaac Lowe's ideal night out. Conor Benn says, numbers don't lie. I will be world champion soon. It's a matter of time. Rome wasn't built in a day. School is never out. Hashtag top 5. James Rathbone94 says, Conor versus Errol Spence is a cracker. I'd back Conor over anyone. Gary Kavanagh has nominated him for that one, though.
He's got 8 retweets, though, mate. So he hit his target, basically. You know, he got what he wanted. He had his retweets, he had his fucking favourites as well. So
he's been ratioed there. Here he is, Rob. The Mayweatherverse. Thank you. We are over 100,000 members on Discord. The money team can't be stopped. Retweet if you are with us. Well, I did retweet from the account, naturally, but not to get onto Discord with Floyd, anyway.
I think I'm in the Mayweatherverse myself tonight, to be honest with you. It's right cracking here. You know, I'm in the great room as we speak. Great
with the metaskeletons.
With the metaskeletons in the back, like the fucking Cobra Kai. I don't know what's going on with Floyd, man. He seems to be. He announced a press conference this week.
Yeah,
that he's having a fight on a roof that he announced before, but because Gervonta Tank Davis was having a press conference this week, he decided to steal the fucking limelight on his own fighter because his ego is so fragile. He always does this. If Canelo has a big fight coming up, he'll have a big fight coming up. He'll pull a stunt, or he'll put up a picture of him beating Canelo every time Canelo beats someone. He's the most salty, petty, fragile egoed great fighter I've ever seen. I've never seen a great fighter with such a fragile ego. Like, a lot of them do have fragile egos, but his seems to be the most fragile. Like, he's in
you
bits.
See that picture as well. He's off the gear. Look at him. He's looking kind of skinny in that picture. So he's off the gear these days, definitely.
Yeah. So, you know, great fighter, one of the best. But fuck me, like, what is he at the moment? But you know, maybe I'm wrong because I don't know how to fucking speculate in the metaverse. You know what I mean? What the fuck I'm going to be left out in the field when everyone else is in the fucking metaverse. It's not going to be nice for me, like, in the future.
You can make a million metaverse dollars and you still couldn't fucking spend the cunts, man. What the fuck? When you spend the shit on, by the way. Maybe those. So tell me, if I was to buy in it, right, and get like $1 million off it, or $1 million metals,
nobody knows, and then people buy it off you.
Aston Martin off it or something like that.
But the thing is, right, you don't know what you're buying, but nobody else knows what you're buying. So when you buy it, you just put the price up, and some other fucking idiot comes in and buys it. Then it's all a fucking giant Ponzi, as far as I can see. And I'm all for it if I can make some fucking paper out of it. I just can't figure it out.
Fucking meta skulls. That's
Maybe the Boxing Asylum needs to exist solely in the Mayweatherverse in the future. Maybe we should holler at Floyd and put that to him.
Our own NFTs out there, by the way.
We got the numbers to back it now. You know what I mean? Just Floyd, give us a fucking break in the Mayweatherverse.
Eddie Hearn wanted to slip into our fucking, Nuthouse chat, that type of thing.
No fucking thanks.
Get a life, join the Mayweatherverse.
In the great room as well. Something great.
Unorthodox Boxing Gear has been nominated by Leon Taraborelli. He says, saw some idiots say that Marshall versus Shields better not be pay-per-view. Are you serious? This is the biggest, most exciting fight ever in female boxing, and these ladies deserve to be paid.
Tell you what, though, it's a good fight, isn't it? Like, come on, let's not shit on the fucking Growth versus Big Savannah. Like, that's a tear-up we want to see, isn't it?
We said it last week, though. We're happy to see that fight. Yeah.
Come on, pay-per-view, though. Poor Matty's already having to shell out for 4 pay-per-views, Rob.
Is that on pay-per-view, is it?
No, this guy's calling for it to be on pay-per-view.
Fucking hell, man.
Ben Salam's not going to put that on pay-per-view. Great guy, Ben Salam. No.
Exactly, man. He's not wanting to pick Amir Khan and Mikhail because he cares about his fighters.
Exactly.
He's a caring guy. Eddie Hearn runs Amir Khan out of his fucking senses by this point because he was all about the pound note. Even Ed.
Right. a final one. This might be hard to beat. Even the Colonel last week tried to give him a good run for his money. But I was alerted to this during the week from Relax over on Twitter, Huds_South. Shout out to him. He did all the heavy lifting and tweeted me in from 2017 Nets Daily. Back in the day, a certain Mr. David Diamante was calling for the Brooklyn Nets basketball team. And there was an interesting article. He had an unfortunate incident, did Diamante, quite similar to a recent one, actually. The former public Nets announcer, talking about his life, said he's feeling super blessed. That's despite barely surviving a nearly fatal motorcycle accident on March the 10th, 2017 in San Francisco. The accident resulted in breaks in 6 places, 5 in the arm, a tibia fracture, abnormally large bruises, countless hours of physical therapy, and a miraculous recovery that saw him riding again less than 2 months later and calling games 2 days later. So in his 6 years, I've never missed a game, he says. The accident happened on March the 10th. He flew back, finished the season, blah, blah, blah. And then Diamante went on to say that it was a near-death experience. He wasn't going to give up bikes, and the arm was hanging off. I was lucky to be alive. My arm actually broke off my body. The meat alone was keeping it on there, says David.
So let me get this right. This guy is like, he takes stem cells and...
What's going on with this guy? Is he going to be like a fucking Netflix documentary in about 2 years' time where he's some kind of fucking serial sick fucking
He takes
you know what I mean?
he can't ride a motorbike, and he's literally out of hospital within 2 days walking. Like, there's nothing wrong there.
Has he got some kind of like, I don't know, like some fucking...
I met him in Riga, actually. He was actually brand new. Honestly, he was a brand new guy. I said, look, I like your jig, for example. I like the way he announces fights. It's not everybody's cup of tea. He's trying to bring back the old school type of announcement. I like the kind of surname, repeated twice if you listen to or watch some of the old fights. Never came across as a bullshit.
Maybe he was just telling the story twice, like he says the name twice at the end of the book.
Exactly. So he's like, he needs to go for the hat trick now. But clearly he needs to get off the motorbikes. He needs to get off the motorbikes because it might be fucking, sometime unlucky next time.
He needs to start showing championship mentality now.
Exactly.
If he's going to fucking survive in this game.
Coming on a paraglider at a DAZN event or something.
Like Del Trotter fucking crashed.
Like the fan man.
In an aerial. And
like Uncle Albert falling in the cellar in this, man. I met him as well, Andy, like you, man, in Boston. Little did I know the hand that I shook had been hanging off just a year before.
Those are fake hands.
Exactly. You just knew it. You didn't know at that time, mate. This could be Ringwalk John's brother from a different mother.
Wow, that is amazing. I can't believe that he's been so unlucky to have fucking snow and then been so lucky to recover both times in such quick fucking... I mean, that's impressive powers of recovery. If only Anthony Joshua could get some of what he has. What a fight would be.
As we see, Steve's put it back up, as you could have a Legacy of Lies Part 1, 2. You can almost rival the Godfather. I actually hear the amount of stories you can tell.
Legacy of Lies. Look at that.
We need to get him on a road trip, Andy. Him, Errol, Vinny Paz. Who else can we get in there? Morris Hooker.
Paul Williams. Ghost Chico Corrales. Who else? Okay. Just honestly, man. I mean, I know it's all about the brand and the retweets these days, but fucking
Nazim Hamid.
Amir Khan.
Amir, yeah.
Amir had a wee issue.
Everyone can have a turn. Don't worry, lads.
Everyone can have a push and a pull on the calls.
Okay, great stuff.
I cannot believe that, man. That is unbelievable. Diamante. Unbelievable stuff. Like, he had the exact same story in a different state 5 years earlier. Maybe there's one in Honolulu as well. He was out here surfing and then he took a fucking motorcycle and smashed up the... I don't know.
He was on... Andy, you listened to it. I haven't listened to it for a while. Tris Dixon's Boxing Life Stories, someone was saying. And I think he might... I don't know whether he told a few tales on there. You kind of would be calling them into question now. I might have to go back and listen to that.
I've not listened to Diamante, to be honest with you, mate.
Neither have I.
Ever since the lockdown, I've not listened to as many podcasts as to what I used to, actually, because obviously I'm not on the go as much as what I was in that, but I would need to maybe go and... When was it actually, just out of curiosity?
I'm not sure. There's a whole Boxrec thread going on about it.
It's very Colonel-esque.
Very suspect.
It's very Colonel-esque and it's fucking...
Because there was somebody... Remember I asked Donnie, actually, there was somebody checking... I think it was Ranger Rollins. They checked some sort of medical database. It never gave the names or the date of birth of the guys or people who got admitted in the hospital, but he apparently checked the time frame, and he says there was nobody admitted to hospital with a motorbike accident around about that time. I was saying to myself, fucking hell.
He's just got up and walked it off, you baby. What do you think?
Exactly.
Go to the hospital and David Diamante.
Don't magic sponge in cold water, run it off, baby. You better Ralgex. Here you go.
His legs are shaky, Adam. Oh dear. Right, anyway, that's all the ones I've got. Andy, any nominations from you?
Very quiet for me this week, mate, but I've got one for Kate Abdo. She's talking to Errol Spence about the situation, and he's saying that I've got PTSD after the car accident, and revealed he had been in another car accident. In the meantime, she's actually even tagged in, order to try and get some traction on her tweet, tagged in the one and only Mickey Benson. Fuck me, man, Mickey Benson. I was raging. I was fuming. Fucking Michael Benson's got me a clout over fucking Kate Abdo and what I've got. Fucking hell.
That's bad form, man.
That's poor form.
Mickey Benson's smooth with us.
He is, just that big nose twat like fucking Carol Froch.
Well, that wasn't what I meant. Go for it.
No, that's what I meant. I'll throw in Eddie Hearn for trying to get Alicia Baumgartner to fight fucking, whatever her name was it? I think it's Michaela Elm. I think she's from France on 1 week's notice. So he decides to bring in Lucas Matisse's sister, who is like 45 on 5 days' notice. So the undercard is stacked and bitching, baby. That's all I've got this week, mate.
Lovely stuff. Rob, any from you, please?
No, I thought the guy that did that was pretty good. And
Robin the Winter all
Chuckle's just done a blinder there, hasn't he? In the chat, he said that the fucking Diamante Legacy of Lies looks like a Rob Kelly mixtape in 10 years' time. So that was pretty good. Like, but yeah, no, nothing else.
That's not even the real Chuckle.
How do we know the fake
Chuckle?
Yeah. For fuck's sake, man. What's going on? Real Chuckle's in the way with us. Sleep in the corner.
Good old Chuckle, tumbling down the rabbit hole like Alice.
The toucan Dan Jason sitting in the corner asleep after two cans. Drawing dicks and fucking vaginas on his forehead and that, you know. Setting, or just put a strip of sellotape across his eyebrows and ripping it off, you know.
My
eyebrows, bitch! You fucking fucking eyebrows.
The Chuckle-verse. Says fake Chuckle says he is the real Chuckle. We don't believe your lies, fake Chuckle. Anyway, it's got to be the one and only for me, Andy. It's got to be old Legacy of Lies himself, man.
They say the time has come. Yes, it has. Diamante has won the Belly of the Week. Yeah, I'll vote Diamante, mate.
2 for Diamante, Bob. Who are you going for?
I said the time has come.
I'm going to go for Diamante.
David Diamante, congratulations. You are the Belly of the Week winner for episode 469. And that is where we shall leave it. We've had a good laugh as always this evening. Rapping Rob Kelly's been with us, Andy Patterson as well. And shout out to Matty G. Gelinardo, who's off to work to pay for all those pay-per-views. Shout out to Joe Burns as well. Just the one super chat from these tight bastards this week. Joe Burns throwing it in earlier. Thank you to you. And also thank you to Easy to Remember 9000 for his account upgrade over on patreon.com/Boxing Asylum. We'll be here next week for episode 470. Living it up as always. In the meantime, have yourself a good week. I've been Steve Wellings. Take care and bye.
We'll never forget.
I think that's good at me.
Go to Adam, move!
We want to be honest, yeah?
Crying like a little bitch.
I've never met a fucking Sri that can fight me.
I fell asleep.
You're a fucking bum, you're a fucking asshole.
Rumpo fucking Steltskin.
But allegedly, Oscar Rivas has failed a test.
7-year aim.
I will fucking smash fucking you.
I hope you fucking die.
Be safe.
I love Boxing Asylum. It's as simple as that.